Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya headquarters. These are our top stories. Peace talks kick off in Saudi Arabia between the US and Ukraine, hours after a Ukrainian drone attack on Russia kills 3 people. President Donald Trump doubles the tariff on Canadian steel as US stocks open lower today, causing major recession concerns. And Greenland goes to the polls as residents vote on the country's future. To our top story, and peace talks have been taking place in Saudi Arabia between Ukraine and US diplomats today. President Volodymyr Zelensky is not in attendance, but his chief of staff, Andrei Yermak, is leading negotiations for Kyiv. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio is representing the United States as the country's highest-ranking official. I'm now joined by Russian expert and senior fellow, the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, Anna Borshchevskaya. Anna, thank you so much for joining me this evening. First of all, how optimistic are you that US-Ukraine officials will be able to carve out a ceasefire deal? And when could we see the results of these negotiations come to light?
Thanks very much for having me. Well, it's hard to be optimistic given that all 3 sides at this stage have different positions and different interests. That is the United States, Ukraine, and Russia. And while Ukraine, for its part, appears to be bringing the most comprehensive, most detailed plan to date, the fact that there's so many differences at this stage, and that this is such an early time, it's hard to tell where this is going.
What will the main sticking points for both Ukraine and Russia actually be? As you said there's so many differences at the time.
Well, for Ukraine, the most important issue is getting security guarantees in some form. And it's unclear what exactly that would look like. But Ukraine must have security guarantees. And they are looking for resumption of intelligence sharing and military aid from the United States. And that's very important. These two key points are very important for Ukraine, given the trajectory of fighting. The United States, for its part, Donald Trump appears to be pushing very hard for some sort of a deal as quickly as possible. Russia, for its part, is taking a maximalist position. So again, at this stage, a lot of questions, a lot of unknowns.
We'll be speaking to our reporter in Moscow in just a moment's time, but I wanted to ask you what your reaction to Ukraine's recent drone attack on Russia is, and could that hinder talks and affect Ukraine's negotiating position right now?
I don't think it would hinder talks. The fact of the matter is, Russia is usually the country that steps up its military bombardment ahead of any negotiations, and that is really par for the course for how Russia does war and how Russia does negotiations. It's intended to intimidate Ukraine. They've done this on such a consistent basis. They've done that in other fighting outside Ukraine. So the fact that Ukraine is doing it while they're trying to legitimately bolster their bargaining position, and that is exactly what they need. They're not in a great place right now as far as bargaining positions go.
Is US support for Ukraine likely to resume if Kyiv commits to a peace process this week? We know relations have been particularly strained of late.
Well, I think, again, there will have to be some sort of Ukraine, because the United States, unfortunately, is putting so much pressure on Ukraine. But Ukraine is in a very difficult position. They are fighting for their survival. They were attacked by Russia. So for them, it's a matter of survival. And what they're asking for, and that is chiefly security guarantees, is also a matter of survival long term. They cannot have a peace at any cost, because a peace at any cost is not a real peace to begin with. And that's the main issue. Russia cannot be allowed to attack Ukraine again. Frankly, this is not just a matter of Ukrainian security, but broader European security. Russia will most likely move on to other countries if there's a hasty peace deal at any cost. And that's really what's at stake here. It's not just Ukraine, it's European security outside Ukraine.
Anna Borshchevskaya, Russian expert and senior fellow, the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks for having me.
Now, 3 people have been killed and 9 others were injured in Moscow after a Ukrainian drone attack. It's believed to be the biggest strike against Russia in 3 years and on the day of the peace talks between Kyiv and Washington. We can now go live to Moscow to speak to our correspondent, Dasha Chernyshova. Dasha, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This was a significant attack targeting 10 regions. It's believed to be the largest against Russia in 3 years. Can you tell us what exactly happened?
That's right. The massive attack against Russian regions, 343 Ukrainian drones have been intercepted by the Russian air defense systems, according to the Ministry of Defense, 91 of them over the Moscow region and capital Moscow, 126 over the Kursk region. Others have also been targeted in other regions of Russia. Now, what happened in Moscow was that several residential houses, several residential complexes have been hit and damaged by the falling debris of those drones. And although the Russian officials insist that it was a massive attack and it was eventually repelled, so they are saying it was successfully repelled, although the civilians have seen this damage done to their houses, their property, their cars that have been hit. Also, we've seen 4 Russian airports in Moscow suspending their operations for several hours, and at least 3 people have died as a result of the attack that has hit the supermarket distribution center. 3 men there were injured. 1 died on spot, 2 others in a hospital. So certainly that was one of the largest attacks against Russia. And we have heard the Russian officials saying that it was an attempt by the Ukrainian side to prove the world that they still have the capacity to carry out such attacks. And that is only proving, according to Russian officials, that the Russian forces have the upper hand on the battlefield, and therefore they are resorting to these measures. So certainly the large-scale attack, several regions hit, most notably the Russian capital.
Dasha, the Kursk region is a contested area across the border from Ukraine, where Russian forces say they're making significant advances right now. Why is this area so crucial to both sides?
Well, to give you the perspective, last August, Ukraine launched a surprise incursion into Russia's Kursk region and has taken under their control significant swaths of the Russian territory. They were in control of several settlements of Russia's Kursk region, and Russia has launched the counterterrorism operation in response. And since August, Moscow has been making some gains, liberating village after village. And now we are hearing that the major offensive by the Russian armed forces has begun. On Tuesday, at least 12 villages have been liberated by the Russian armed forces. That means that the Ukrainian troops are encircled on the Russian territory. That means the supplies to these troops are dwindling more and more. And certainly that was an important bargaining chip for Ukraine. Controlling the territory inside Russia was one of the best cards that the Ukrainian side had, according to many political analysts. And as Russia is squeezing the Ukrainian troops out from its territory, definitely that's going to impact the way that the negotiations will be taking place. Despite that, Moscow has always been saying it is just the matter of when that will be taking place rather than if.
You just mentioned those negotiations. Let's get on to that. The attack happened as the peace talks were set to begin in Saudi Arabia between Kyiv and Washington. What impact has it had on the talks today? So, you know, the Kursk region impact and the drones.
Well, from the Russian perspective, the negotiations on peace are yet to begin because these are not negotiations between Moscow and Kyiv. These are the talks between the Ukrainian and American delegations. So therefore, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said that there is nothing to be derailed by this attack against Russia or by the development in Kursk. What Moscow is saying, though, is definitely that the trajectory towards the negotiated settlement of this conflict that has started to emerge over the course of the past 2 weeks definitely is going to be spoiled. Another comment that we got from the Russian officials was that Moscow will have to respond, and there have been many calls by the Russian lawmakers for the Russian authorities to use Oreshnik hypersonic missiles, for instance, against the Ukrainian side in response to this attack by the drones against Russia on Tuesday morning. However, others are warning that this is yet a provocation by the Ukrainian side to make Moscow carry out such an attack, and that would be derailing even the negotiations that are taking place on the track of the restoration of ties between Moscow and Washington. So with all those elements in place, at this stage, it is unclear what sort of effect there will be. One thing that is clear is that Ukraine is definitely trying to show to the world the capacity it still has on the battlefield, but Moscow insists it does have the upper hand.
Dasha, Chernyshova in Moscow, thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines today. A 59-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter over the North Sea collision. The Coast Guard rescued 36 people after a cargo ship crashed with an oil tanker on Monday. One crew member is still missing and presumed dead. The cargo ship owners say the vessel was not carrying sodium cyanide as previously reported, but did have 4 empty containers which had once held the chemical. 6 people are dead in central and southern Gaza, whilst 4 have been killed in Jenin after Israeli attacks. An elderly woman is among the dead. It comes as ceasefire talks begin in Qatar to discuss the second phase of the deal between Israel and Hamas. The former Philippines president has been arrested over alleged crimes against humanity and forcibly taken onto a plane headed for The Hague. Rodrigo Duterte was stopped upon landing in Manila on the basis of an ICC warrant. The case focuses on thousands of killings that took place during his brutal crackdown on illegal drugs from 2011 until the end of his presidency. And President Trump says he'll buy a Tesla to support Elon Musk. It comes as the electric car maker's shares closed down more than 15% amid Musk's political actions in the White House. Wall Street's main indexes opened lower earlier today after a dramatic fall on Monday as investors react to President Trump's tariffs. Days earlier, Trump had been asked about a possible U.S. recession, where he told the interviewer there would be a period of transition as he attempted to bring wealth back to America. On Tuesday morning, the dollar slid further against the pound and also the euro. However, a sell-off in global shares have eased in Europe. Sarah Firth has the story.
When it comes to the American economy right now, well, there's not that much to cheer about. On the back of President Trump's tariff threats, economists are using words like uncertainty, volatility, and anxiety, all things the stock market responds badly to.
Continue to sell off in the wake of additional now and continued uncertainty around what the Trump tariff situation is going to look like. We have a lot of different numbers and a lot of different trading partners that keep coming up on the news. And we're kind of waiting to see where things land today, the next hour, the next week. And market participants hate uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty around this right now.
Today, that anxiety continuing. And with the tariff threats and news of a possible government shutdown here in DC, the dreaded R word has again entered Americans' daily vocabulary.
I think the speed with which the market is reassessing probabilities around recession is directly linked with the two things. One, uncertainty around tariffs and what the impact may have on inflation and just the general economic outlook. And then two, there's a bit of a growth scare that's going on at the same time. And so those two things, compounded by consumer sentiment, which is just really bad right now, those things are adding up to this, moment of volatility in the market.
One thing we know the president does respond to is consumer sentiment. But in a Fox News interview over the weekend, he refused to rule out a recession. He did, however, tweet out his support for Elon Musk. Countries, both near and far, friend and foe, are responding to the turmoil over the president's trade war, provoking measures and countermeasures. The EU Commissioner for Trade claiming the US does not seem engaging to make a deal.
We want to have a constructive and positive relationship with the United States of America, and therefore I would highlight once again that our doors are opened for constructive engagement. We are absolutely convinced that no one wins from tariffs.
No one wins, but we know President Trump hates to lose. A White House spokesman has responded to the market volatility, saying industry leaders have responded to President Trump's America First economic agenda of tariffs, deregulation, and the unleashing of American energy with trillions in investment commitments that will, he says, create thousands of jobs. President Trump himself has called what's happening a state of transition. Trump promised to make America great again. But given continued market volatility and as the trade wars heat up, his critics say President Trump's actions in the White House have already made America at risk of recession again. Sarah Firth, Al Arabiya, Washington.
America is back.
Let's take another look at some of the other stories making headlines today. President Trump says he's instructed the Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff on all steel and aluminium coming into the U.S. from Canada, taking it to 50%. Trump says the changes will go into effect tomorrow. Canada's incoming Prime Minister Mark Carney says it's an attack on Canadian workers, families and also businesses. A 5.7 magnitude earthquake has struck the Peru-Brazil border earlier today. It's believed to be at a depth of 658 kilometers. The Vatican says Pope Francis has spent a quiet night in hospital. It's also indicated the 88-year-old pontiff could be discharged soon. He's been treated at Rome's Gemelli Hospital for more than 3 weeks for double pneumonia. And a prosecutor in Los Angeles has said the Menendez brothers must fully acknowledge the lies they told about the murder of their parents in order to be freed. Lyle and Eric Menendez has spent 34 years in prison after being convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in 1996. They shot their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, at their house in Beverly Hills in 1989, and the case captivated the US. Now, Greenland heads to the polls today for the country's general election. Many citizens may use their vote as a chance to free themselves from Danish rule, and in the future, an option to take President Trump up on his promise to invest billions of dollars into Greenland to join the United States. The US president has consistently eyed up the territory, telling White House reporters the US needs Greenland for national security, and one way or another, we're gonna get it. Here's a reminder.
We also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security. And I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Let's chat to senior researcher at the Norwegian Fridtjof and Nansen Institute, Christian Pripp. Christian, you just heard there, one way or another, we are going to get it. The words of Donald Trump. Why is he so focused on acquiring Greenland for the US?
I think he already mentioned it, that it's very much for security reasons. Greenland is very important for the U.S. With its location. It's very strategically important place for the U.S. They are already there with an air base, but they want to expand their military activity on Greenland. But there are also other reasons for why he could be very interested. Greenland is rich in minerals, including very rare minerals that are used for mobile phones and electronic cars and bytes and these kind of things. And they are still in the ground. They have not been extracted. And by going into Greenland, he would be able to take and extract these very important minerals. He could take market shares from China, which is the dominating country in this business. And that could be a third reason also, is to keep China out of Greenland, actually, because China, as we know, is expanding in many ways and would also like to influence Greenland. That's clear. So these are the reasons I believe for Trump to be so interested in Greenland.
You're Danish yourself, and Greenland has been a semi-autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark since 1979. Do Greenlanders wish to free themselves from Denmark?
Yes, they would like to free themselves for Greenland. The great majority, at least, would like to do that. The question is then, and that is the divisive issue, is at what speed this should happen. I think now the greater majority want the independence process to be a rather slow one, recognizing that Greenland is not quite ready for independence in the near future because of its high dependency on getting economic support from Denmark.
As you just mentioned there, we're talking about economic support. Fishing is the main source of income to Greenland's economy. How much are they still reliant on the Danish government for funds?
They are still very much relying on Danish funds. A very big share of the national budget in Greenland is covered by funds that comes from Copenhagen, from from Denmark, and that is why and this situation is not. It will take a while for this situation to change. It will take a lot of investments in Greenland, in other areas of business and fisheries. So that is why, as I said, that Greenland, I think Greenlanders want independence, but they also realize that they are not ready yet for this to happen.
And what are your predictions for today's election results and the future of Greenland, if you can see that far ahead?
Yes, my predictions for the election is that the present government, which is kind of center-left government, will remain in power after the election today, maybe in a broader coalition across the center of the political spectrum, because there is this sense in Greenland of seriousness about the President Trump's announcements and claims for Greenland. So I think there is a wish among the Greenland politicians to stand closer together. That is my prediction.
Christian Prupp, senior researcher at the Norwegian Fridtjof Nansen Institute. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Let's take a look at the top business news. Volkswagen is forecasting another challenging year for ramping up EV sales, cutting costs and navigating trade tensions. That's as it seeks to streamline its operations in Europe and catch up with the cheaper and faster rivals in China. On Tuesday, Volkswagen reported that it expected a best at slight increase in this year's operating profit margin. However, the outlook does not factor in the impact of possible US tariffs. Spanish fashion retailer Mango is adapting to tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on imports from China. According to the CEO, they could also rethink the types of products it sells in the US, which is its fifth largest market. Tony Ruthith confirmed it does not plan to raise prices to offset the impact of tariffs, even though that could dent its margins. Turning to the sports news now. Liverpool boss Arne Slot says his side needs to produce the best performance of the season to see off PSG on Tuesday and progress to the Champions League quarter-finals. The Reds were second best for most of their last 16 first leg in Paris last week, but snatched a 1-0 victory thanks to Harvey Elliott's late strike. Liverpool remain in the running to win 3 trophies this season. And Manchester United have announced plans to build an iconic new 100,000-seater stadium close to Old Trafford. Co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe said he wanted to build the world's greatest football stadium, which will cost £2 billion and could be finished in 5 years' time. The club is currently £1 billion in debt and are yet to say how they do plan to pay for the stadium. A reminder of our top stories. Peace talks kick off in Saudi Arabia between the US and Ukraine, hours after a Ukrainian drone attack on Russia kills 3 people. President Donald Trump doubles the tariff on Canadian steel as US stocks open lower today, causing major recession concerns. And Greenland goes to the polls as residents vote on the country's future. That's all from us on W News. Thank you so much for joining us. The Dressing Room is coming up next. And don't miss Tom Burges Watson with GNT. Good night.
At Al Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News.
It's very impressive.
Where knowledge meets perspective.
Welcome to the dressing room with our Arabiya News. How are we, chaps?
I just couldn't notice that hair popping out of the t-shirt.
What's going on there, bro?
Different look for you today, isn't it?
This is a tight-fitting t-shirt.
Wow, this seems like
straight into the fashion wear.
An onslaught from day one.
Listen, before we was on camera, off camera, this guy's checked out my t-shirt, what I've got on.
Yeah.
My shirt, what I've got on. And then he's gone look down at me and he's gone, Asics, yeah?
I quite like Asics trainers.
I felt like I was being judged.
That's where you're wrong, right? Because I'm looking at you two are coming. I think, right, where's fashion at the moment? Like, this is my barometer.
See,
and that comment was, oh, Asics must be in. Because for me, I would just wear Asics if I was running a marathon. Yeah. But he's put it together nicely with a little outfit.
Okay, I'll take that.
So don't take it offensively. Well, it's not a good start to the show.
It depends what type of Asics you're wearing, though. You've got the running ones. You've got the ones that you just need to walk around with. I've got bad knees, so I walk around with these because they're quite
Sort the knees out, yeah?
Yeah, it sorts the knees out.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, what have you been up to this week?
They look good.
They do look good.
What have I been up to this week? I went to, last week I went to Millwall.
Wow.
Mate.
Behind enemy lines, yeah?
Behind enemy lines. I didn't even talk to it about you, or I didn't say nothing to anybody about it because I just didn't want to get like
intel.
Yeah, because do you know what it is? It's like you just want to go in there and respect the environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gone in there and I thought, okay, I'm on my own. Yeah? I need backup. So I said, you know what? Let me just keep a low profile.
Black Hawk down.
Yeah, and then I just went in there. And it was in the nice part, the hospitality section. I sat down, and a geezer to my left to me, and I asked, okay, are you all right? I didn't get nothing back. And there's a couple of geezers to my right. I asked, are you all right? I got nothing back. So I was like, oh, cool, blimey, it's a bit frosty in here. So I was like, I don't feel welcome. So I got on the blower, and I was praying that my mate Kyle, that's at West Ham, our head of recruitment, was coming. And I was like, Carl, how long are you going to be, man? I feel lonely here. I feel lonely because I feel like I'm being judged. Like, what is he doing here? What is he doing? But it was, behind enemy lines, man. But at the same time, there was a few West Ham fans in there.
Really?
Yeah, working in hospitality. And they made me feel a little bit welcome, asking me if I wanted a drink or anything.
I've been with Millwall, I went with my mates, Southampton Millwall game.
Yeah,
it was actually a good experience. They were quite friendly, actually. I was very surprised. Although I did know a few Millwall fans.
Yeah,
but they're singing a few abusive songs every now and again. But they're really polite. I took my dad. Everyone was really good with my dad. Because he was struggling with the stairs. People would get up and help him and stuff. I had a good experience.
I think what happened as well, because I think there was that incident that happened at Crystal Palace with Mateta, the goalkeeper. And I think they were. I didn't know what was going on behind me because I'm a bit oblivious. I'm watching the game. I'm watching George Earthy play for Bristol City, and he started the game obviously. So I'm watching that, but I heard a big roar and a clap.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What's that about? What are they clapping about?" And I was looking. I didn't understand what was going on at the time. So when I was the next day, I was listening to TalkSport, and apparently they were clapping on the minute or something like that. Like, goalkeeper clattered into Mateta. Let's put him out.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh,
it's a bit much, isn't it?
I didn't.
It's a bit much. It's a bit much.
I didn't know that was the case. I was in there, mate. If I'd have known, I would have been like up in uproar, innit?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know. I almost joined in. I almost joined in. Just to fit in. No. So this ain't bad enough, but I didn't know what was going on. So
do you know what with Millwall, right? So my dad's best friend Ronnie, and love him. He's a big Millwall fan. Used to be there. And so my dad went to the Millwall Man United Cup final in 2004. and I don't know why he went. We went with Ronnie. I think he didn't even like football, especially a game I wasn't playing him. But he went to the cup final with the Millwall fans, and he said, and they're in a lovely hotel in Wales, and it's a massive thing for them. You remember him saying, and it's all a like really nice to do restaurant. Everything was, and there was a guy on the piano, and their song they sing, "No one likes us, we don't care," is the Rod Stewart songs, "We Are Sailing." So he's gone. My dad's gone to the piano fella and gone, listen, give him a score and said, look, would you play Rod Stewart, "We Are Sailing"? He don't know that it's Millwall's song in this lovely restaurant. Everyone's dining nicely. So he starts playing "We Are Sailing." Then he said the whole restaurant, all the Millwall fans, there were people in there like singing this song, and it starts going off. He said, the party just started from that. My God. And he said he had a great time with the Millwall fans. And yes, listen, they're misunderstood, and I think. What they do is, I think they make a run for their own back. No, they play up to that. No one in the same. Yeah. They play up to their "no one likes us," and that's their thing. So when they feel like, listen, it was a dreadful tackle on the lad, and you certainly shouldn't be clapping it. Do you know what I mean? It was. But I think what they do is they like you said, they play up to that. Yeah. No one likes us, don't they? And but yeah, listen, it is what it is. They want to moan about. We'll give them something to moan about. That's what they're like. Yeah, you know, when you try and tell your kid off, and they double down on it, and you're like, where do I go from here? What are we doing here? Yeah, we'll have to get the tariffs going. Oh mate, it is like that. Yeah, I do understand that. But we're glad you survived. Yeah, I was all right. No, listen, they weren't bad in the end. It was like. The hospitality section was really cute to me. And I enjoyed it in the end, but I was obviously there for work. Good. But I did feel a bit of frost when I first went in. Maybe that's just me overlooking it or overfeeling it. Like it was quite dodgy scenario for me to be in. Well, we're glad you're with us. What about you?
I survived. Oh mate, it's been a good week. The sun's out, isn't it? The sun's been out. Oh yeah, beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. It just makes things better. I played a bit of golf. Yeah. That was,
Play golf?
Yeah, I do play, but not a lot. Oh. I've played with Joe.
You're a good golfer.
I'm all right.
Yeah, you're good.
It's one of them, though. Do you know what?
Yeah.
I answer too many phone calls.
Yeah.
Phone calls are getting on my nerves as well, which affected my golf. Once I was off the phone, 7 good holes.
Who was it? Rubbish. Who was getting on your nerves?
Oh, I'm not saying who. I'm not saying who.
It weren't me, was it? I'll rung you like this.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. But other than that, kids' football weekend was good. Parker ended up getting man of the match. They lost. He was in goal, but made some great saves. And I went Jamie Lawrence's party.
Yeah.
Those who don't know, is
you rung me.
Ex-footballer who's turning 55. Yeah, I did ring you, didn't I? Yeah, might have been a little bit tipsy. He's a good lad. Obviously, you know him, Carlton. Yeah. He's I just become good friends with him over the last few years. Do you know what I mean? He's got great stories where going into prison, coming out, becoming a footballer. But I went along with him. I probably shouldn't have met up with him before his party because I was on my way by the time we got there. But no, it was good. I was a bit fragile yesterday, So I just sat in the garden listening to Bob Marley in the sun.
With the rays.
That's it, mate.
Yeah. Getting the vitamin D.
It's important, isn't it?
Well, you were working, so I was trying to get you two to come to the party.
Yeah, you rung me.
Carlton was busy, you was busy.
Yeah, mate, I've had a busy week, man. I bet 3 games.
I bet when you answered the phone to me, you're like, thank God I never went.
Sometimes you try and fit things in, but it's just not possible.
I know. Listen, I would have loved to have been there. I was driving back from Wolverhampton, did the Everton Wolves game, saw David Moyes, and he's in great form. He's in good play. But me and Crouchy went down to Nottingham Forest on Wednesday with TNT to do. Mate, what a place that is!
What's the spirit must be good there.
The spirit, the great lads. So you walked into the dress. You walk in, you go in, and as you walk in, you get the guys who look after the media stuff introduce you, then you plan out. There's a big plan. We've got the cameramen, and what we're going to do, we're going to speak to Nuno, we're going to speak to... So basically, we looked at the call sheet, as they call it, and it's like, right, we're going to play Paul with Ryan Yates and Morgan Gibbs-White. And then we played head tennis with Callum Hudson-Odoi and Willie Bolly. And then a few interviews. Mate, it was brilliant. Honestly, Morgan Gibbs-White and Ryan Yates... great, they're all great lads, Callum and Willie. But we played. They made us. There's a coffee shop in the training ground, and Ryan Yates.
Shop.
Yeah,
selling it.
Well, they're not selling it. They're it's for the lads. But they got and Ryan Yates made us a cup of coffee, and he's like a bit of a barista, so he was putting a bit of
is it?
Yeah, it was good. they're great lads, and you could just tell the spirits there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it ended up with so it was like basically me and Crouchy, a day in the life of a footballer, and by the end of the day we got in the ice bath. I don't know what the things they get us doing. Yeah, I know. And it was. Do you know what as well? I noticed because I still think I'm in decent shape. Yeah. But I'm just seeing an outcut of me getting into this ice bath, and like Crouchy's slim. He's always slim. He can't put on weight. But I'm like. There's a little derby on me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Happens,
what do you mean? Yeah, you're supposed to happen.
That's getting old, isn't it? It's getting old. I've got it, mate.
I've got a few folds.
Yeah.
I've got a few folds, man.
You don't change your diet, mate. It just creeps up.
Yeah, it just comes up.
Oh, mate.
Well, I watched a bit. Do you know what I watched? I think it was Aina. He came. Did he give you?
Oh, what a lad! Ola Aina, what a guy!
Aina, yeah, he gave
me some his interview after the game.
Oh, he was buzzing that he saw you, by the way.
Really?
He was buzzing
after the game.
He loved you.
Sure, he didn't.
No, it wasn't after the game. I think it was.
Before, yeah,
he was on his Snapchat or something.
Yeah. No, he had to borrow me boots. That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
Boots, so
and he filmed you.
Yeah,
and then
mate.
I see you go like that. He was like, yeah, boy. And then he gone, ooh.
Yeah, he was buzzing.
Yeah, he was buzzing to see you, man.
He seems like a good lad.
Straight away, like first of all, I think he's a very, very good footballer.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been watching him, his development.
Yeah.
But you know, when you say someone in the training ground, you're like, we'd be friends. Do you know what I mean? We'd be friends.
Yeah.
Him and Callum and Alanga, they're great lads, and they were very chirpy. The place, honestly, they're gonna make the Champions League. If they was, I'd even go if they was 5 or 6 points behind Liverpool. I'd even say they'd even have a go at it. Honestly, the way it's too much now, but the way they're together is unbelievable.
That's a big
shout. You could tell the way they played.
Yeah,
the way they pressed and everything.
That's a big shout.
Yeah,
big shout from now. Do you reckon they'll make Champions League?
They'll make Champions League. I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah?
Screenshot that, everyone. Okay. I'm happy with that.
All right.
You know,
I like that.
Yeah, I'm
standing. Must have done something.
Mate, they did, man. I love them.
They made you believe. They made you believe.
Everyone. Mate, I was like, me and Crouchy both left it, and we went. We had such a good time there, and it was like, remember what it was like to be a footballer? Just bouncing around, a little bit of this, and
do you know
I had to go home and tell the missus that was a hard day's work, though, but it wasn't.
You know what I like though?
Go on.
I like the owner.
Yeah, mate.
Always in the tunnel, giving high fives before they go out. Yeah. When they come back in, setting the vibe and setting the. It's really nice to see. Like your owner gets involved like that, and just really rates you.
Difference, can't it? Definitely.
It makes a difference.
Roman was good. I had Peter Schmeichel, Casper talking about Leicester, and he was like the owner after a game.
Yeah.
He just made everyone feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it makes a massive difference.
Like nice little presents here and there. Like it probably gives them little gifts. It's true.
Yeah.
Like when you want the boys to play well, all you got to do is get them on side and say, "Listen, I'll run through a brick wall for you."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that presence and that seeing him visually in the tunnel,
you can't miss him, can you?
Yeah, I know he's a big fella as well, and he's there giving high fives before you go out, and he acknowledges you.
Yeah,
that's a big thing, man.
Yeah, the big guy in it. There's a little bit of a disconnect in there. A lot of clubs. We'll go back to the first game that what springs to mind for me was yesterday. Man United, Arsenal. Like, what do you make of that, Bridgie?
Great goal, Bruno, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's some technique, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
When I see it.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how they do it. How he does it.
I'll tell you how it got to happen.
Technique. It's the power he gets in it.
No, but Bridgie,
it. I
the
don't know if
ball was about flipping. It was on the. It might as well been on the goal line.
Why was it? I know it's only an extra yard or so, but why?
Because basically the referee counts the yards, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's miscounted.
He's miscounted it. It's probably done 11 steps instead of 10.
I tell you, remember he used to do that, actually. Remember they picked up on it. It was years ago. It was Henry. He was always scoring free kicks.
Yeah.
And they do the 10-yard, then he'd move the ball back a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's
what he used to do.
But I remember someone had picked up on it, and then the next game, the ref had basically told him not to move it. But he still went and stuck it in the top corner. I remember that. But mate, it's still the technique he's got though, mate, is unreal.
Yeah.
The way he gets the dip, and I don't know if it's the balls or what.
What do you make of like? Because I think it was Harry Redknapp come out and was because he divides opinion, Bruno Fernandes, didn't he? Like I think because he's playing at United at such a dreadful time and a poor time in their history, but he's carrying them really, isn't he? Like, and I think Harry come out and he said he couldn't lace the boots of the the 92. Listen, he's not Scholesy, let's be honest, or Bex or Giggsy, but he's a very good footballer, isn't he?
He's very good. Is it? I'm sure I see Roy Keane at one point
slating
him a bit, which I'd get in a way because I think it's maybe how his attitude may come across sometimes.
Yeah,
I think sometimes people have picked up on him throwing his hands in the air, moaning, or sometimes maybe his work rate. Is he? He has carried him because he's got so much ability.
Yeah,
I think Roy's point was probably a little bit like, as he got the hard work.
Yeah.
That bit of it in his game, and to really, really lead.
Yeah,
because he's leading by example in some of his talent.
Yeah,
and what he can do, but the other side of the game.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Moving people around, getting everyone in position, geeing everyone upright.
Yeah, because no matter how talented you are, there's certain periods when your talent's going to not be enough. It's going to be something else that wins you a game. Is there any?
He's got loads of talent.
Yeah, he's got so much talent. Is there any players you can think of who were like in your career, Coley, like leaders, but they were a little bit sort of like, I can't figure the word, like not childlike, but because Bruno can be a little bit. He arms up and all that.
I don't like that in a game though. I don't like it.
I think it's a generational thing. I think, look, you get to like our days. It was totally different how to lead, or sometimes you look at Steven Gerrard. You don't catch him moaning. Yeah, if it's not going his way, you could see that he just try and lift the team as much as possible in his actions. Yeah, probably not as talking, but when he does talk, because he don't talk a lot. Yeah, it's quite powerful. Yeah, do you know what I mean? But then you see how he plays. It's like, oh, God, I've got to be up to that standard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I've played in a team where I've had someone throw their hands up at me or anyone in particular. Oh, maybe Bellamy at someone, maybe.
As a captain, though.
Maybe Bellamy, not as a captain. But even as a player, mate.
As a player, it's pouring it. I used to.
I'm always like, I try and drill it into my kids, and that happens at the weekend. It's like, if a little mistake happens, there's no point in going, oh no, and like getting down. It's just react. Yeah. It's your reaction afterwards, isn't it? Yeah. And that's why I think that reaction of throwing your hands in the air just ain't needed. Yeah. I think I remember Lampsey shouting at me once, and it stood out for me.
So you mentioned that about 3 days ago.
I did it before, and it stands out because
he's still talking about it now.
I know.
Lamps, you affected this guy, still to this day.
I actually probably needed it at that time, but my head probably went like that a little bit. And he's like, Bridgie, come on, let's go. You know what I mean? But
was that it?
Was it? No.
Next time we go out, I'm going to get in your ready.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like
Bridgie, let's go.
Laps is on the phone. He said, liven yourself up.
I see with the kids.
Lab said, liven yourself up.
You're not.
It was like, I see it with the kids, and it's like, no, just react. Like, all that stuff, like it's a reaction.
Well, that's what I think gets taught now,
hands
Bridget.
Don't help anyone.
I think that's what gets taught now. By the way, it's and it started from looking at Barcelona. So when I look at how Barcelona played, remember they was really good on the ball. Yeah, unbelievable in possession. Yeah, but when they lost the ball, that desire to go bang. Yeah, it's okay if we make the mistake, but go and get that ball back. There's 3 around you straight away. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have picked up on that. Yeah, and Pep's brought that over here.
Jose brought it. Jose brought it with us.
Yeah. So it's actually a thing. So it should be a thing where I shouldn't have to tell you as a captain that's what is required, because you know that reaction, when you're losing the ball or you're not playing too well, your reaction's everything. And I think that's where you don't need a captain to be shouting at you. You should know that already. It's part of our play. It's a part of the plan. Yeah. You know? And when I look at the way he's been bombarded with abuse, Fernandes. With some parts of the media.
He divides ex-players. Doesn't he?
No, I don't mind it. I think he's a good player. I'm not saying...
He's a good player. We're saying he's good.
I don't think he
ain't the problem, put it that way.
He's not the problem, and I don't think he's a real...
There's a lot of problems.
I don't think it's his fault that he's the captain. He's just the best player on the team. Do you know what I mean? He has to shoulder the burden of having to go where the buck stops.
Yeah.
So where does it... So if you're not winning games, where does the buck stop? It's always going to come at your doorstep as a captain sometimes.
Yeah.
And then people are going to be lambasting you, bombarding you with abuse, and then you'll be like, do you know what? It might get on his nerves, but he can't show a reaction. And I've heard him talk as well. He talks well.
Yeah, I know.
He's always positive.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else you can do. Like, you can't drag the team up. There's not everyone's going to be like a Steven Gerrard that can perform in that way. And I think he's started to work on his reactions as well, because he can't be throwing his hands up in the air.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I think he's doing the best job he can.
I agree with you, mate. And I remember Paolo Di Canio at West Ham. When I was a young man, he very similar characters, like great players, animated arms. I remember. I'm not going to say the player's name but he didn't give Paolo the ball at the right time. You're a young lad, and you come in, and he just said to Paolo, "You ever do that again?" Do you know? And it was sort of like a little lesson for a young player. Like, right, okay, I'm going to make sure I never do that. Because as a youngster, I did have that in my locker, that little bit of petulance. But I thought, I don't want no heat from none of these my teammates.
Boys.
So it's something that I think he ain't a problem at Man United. So, but there's so many. Sort the roof out for the first thing. There's leaks everywhere. Anyway, right, listen. It was a
good game.
It was a good game.
Man United just sat deep.
Mate, listen, that's not good enough for Man United. Like,
it's not.
Like, I don't care who you play. The club's not built on that. They can't do that.
But that's Amorim understanding where they're at the moment.
Yeah.
They can't expand because they ain't got the players to do it. They can't play the way he wants them to play because they ain't got the players to do it.
Yeah.
You're coming up against a good Arsenal team as well. That's knocking on the door for... Well, they was knocking on the door.
They ain't knocking on anything, mate.
But you got to respect them. You're not in the position that you were or are supposed to be. So So I don't mind sitting like that and then trying to get them on the counter, which they tried. And there was actually... that style actually suited them for a game like that. So look at it, it was 1-1 in the end. You know what I mean? It worked.
Yeah. No problem with it. I just we quickly get onto the Arsenal side of things, right? So, Arteta's trying to win the game. His decision to bring on Kieran Tierney on for Raheem Sterling.
That's
disrespectful. What do you make of that? Because for me, Raheem. I mean, he didn't work for him at Chelsea. He's gone to Arsenal. I thought, that makes sense. I experienced that. He's just not using him. So, there was a newspaper article that came out about how well he's training and how well respected he is by all the coaching staff. But if Arteta's doing that, bringing on Kieran Tierney instead of Raheem Sterling during the critical phase,
But Raheem,
I feel for him.
Raheem, come on. Raheem, he's a proper player, right? We know that. We say it didn't work out for him at Chelsea. I think it did. I think he done all right. I don't think he done bad. I just think the
standards he set.
I'm just saying.
Chelsea going through a difficult time.
I'm just saying the format of what Chelsea wanted going forward. He didn't suit that because he was. What is he? 30 now.
Yeah, he must be 30.
Yeah, he's about 30.
He looks still about 21, doesn't he? He looks great.
He's cracking on for them. For Chelsea, because Chelsea wanted to keep it young. What's the average age at Chelsea? 23, 24? So, and that's probably where they got a lot wrong as well. They needed to get experience, Chelsea, just in times like when it's not going too well. But anyway, he's gone to Arsenal. We're thinking he's going to crack on again. But then you get later on into the season and then your gaffer's not. And forget about all the noise. Forget about how much they respect him and everything. Actions say a lot, I don't know what it was, but you need a goal, and then you bring on Kieran Tierney to instead of a seasoned pro,
goal scorer,
that might get back on the good side of things because he's up there. He might make something happen. He might score a goal. Do you know what I mean? You don't know, and you need a goal. So why are you bringing on a defender? I think it was. But for me, I don't know, but I'd say that's disrespectful. If I was looking at it from his eyes.
Raheem's eyes. Raheem will see it as that, for sure.
That's disrespectful.
For sure. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Bridgie? Because I look at it... imagine you coming on in front of a striker.
Behind closed doors, that he might not even believe in him, but then, like I said, Raheem's going to be sat there thinking, what am I here for?
Yeah. But if you're coming on, Bridgie, if you're coming on and you're looking at, we need a goal, and then...
Oh, well, it's like someone bringing me on instead of Joe if they want to go and win the game, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah. I'm sure that's happened a few times.
but wouldn't you even think I'm just looking from your perspective as a defender coming on, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? How would you look at that?
I don't know. Well, I would look at it and think, what are you doing, mate?
You're
right, mate. You need a goal, mate.
Mate, it's reminding me. Do you remember when Stuart?
Say a story about me, is it?
No. Do you remember when Stuart Pearce was manager of Man City and he brought J-Mo on up top,
my God.
and they had a centre forward? I think it was John Mackham in the background, man. That is just like.
Oh, that's disrespectful.
That is
to the highest degree.
Mate, imagine the looks on the bench if you're sitting there. J-Mo, get your kit on.
J-Mo be buzzing.
J-Mo be buzzing. He'd be like, I think it was one of them, like, football was very different back then, but he was like, he'd come on and just J-Mo was just like in the air. Just looked like this big unit.
I remember
just
he gave a foul away, yeah. He done some slide tackle in the box, in the opposition box. I was like, J-Mo, man.
I know, mate.
Slide tackles, and you don't do slide.
That's the J-Mo we're talking about.
Mate, it's not quite a left back, but for that. But the manager after the game, Mikel Arteta,
his head's gone.
Listen, I mean, we'll talk about manager interviews in a minute. But what did you make of his? He just didn't want to be there, did he? And it's understandable. Yeah,
he's got a lot.
You know what it's like? The interview's just probing him all the time, isn't it? And he's probably thinking after a bit, just get me out of here. And his head ain't gone, but it's gone.
Yeah,
I'll get. No, thanks, mate. See you later.
How would you handle that? Like, if your head's gone, because
I would put myself in that position. If I'm totally honest.
I think the whole squad's head's gone.
It does, mate. In that when you get asked a question.
Yeah.
In some interviews, and like you've given your answer, but they ain't got the answer they want. So they kind of go on.
Yeah.
In a different way, but the same kind of question, really.
It can be like a cheap detective show from America, isn't it, when they're interrogating.
Mate,
you know what I mean?
Like lights probing him.
Where was you in the night in question?
It's not Columbo, is it?
It's
not Columbo. It's not asking the right question.
We can all understand his head's gone. You've kind of got to do the right thing and not, but we're all human, aren't we?
That's what they're born to do, to be a reporter.
Yeah.
And reporters can get annoyed.
Yeah.
And
he ain't
prime example is what they done to Arteta.
Yeah.
Like Arteta was like answering all these questions.
Yeah.
And then he was doing it all right, but you can see he was agitated.
Yeah.
And Arteta was like, he says, okay, I've had enough. And he walks off camera. He goes, and then the guy goes, hold on. He goes, mate, as soon as he done that, he grips him up.
The thing is, he stopped starting listening to the question. He just went again. And I was like...
He goes, I've got to ask you this question. I've got to ask you this question. And it was a question that he can't answer.
Mate.
And he said, get out of here, man.
He won't be the first. He won't be the last.
Of course not.
Mate, that was hilarious.
Talking about that, because obviously I'm working the games now, and so that's one of the jobs we have to do. I don't do it personally. The girls do it, who work with us, who interview the managers after the game, and it's the hardest thing. Like we interview players before the game, and we interview the managers. The winning manager comes to the desk and he speaks to us, and that's fine because it's all roses. It's still a song and dance. Like we had David. Was it David Moyes after the game who come over? I can't remember. It might have been before the game, and we were asking him, David, do you think you're safe? He's like 16 points clear with 10 games to go. Like, we all know he's going to say, no, I don't feel like I'm safe. But really, he'd be thinking, mate, if this would be, but you can't say it. So the whole process is a dance, song and dance. You know what I mean? It's like, and so, but it's all right. I mean, it's not the most favourite part of my job because I'm asking questions. And even I'm asking, I'm thinking, this is a stupid question. Yeah. And I know, like, it'll be, imagine me and you having to do something good.
Then.
Yeah, but otherwise I'm still...
You can't stay still on mute.
I've got to say something. You'll be like, you'll say they've won the game. You were really happy with the performance today.
Of course
they are.
What do you think he did well? What could you have done better?
Yeah, I know, but it's just like, and then...
Anyway, you're actually...
I almost, when the camera got to me, I'm sorry about that, geez.
Most of the times you're put on the spot as well. Like this says, Coley, Joe... Is there something you want to ask right now? If there is, do it now. Yeah. And they're like, my brain don't think that fast, so I'm just going to ask the obvious. Yeah. How did you think that goal went in?
isn't it? It's absurd.
Stupidity. But then this is what makes it worse, right? The audience is watching. Yeah. It's like, he's so thick.
Yeah, no.
Because you haven't had no time to prepare, and you got to think on your feet. It's just the way it is, isn't it?
Oh, mate. It's
the way it is. And look, sometimes it's entertaining, sometimes it's like bad for you as the person that's on the receiving.
Do you know, the girls that do it, the job, I say to them all the time in work, it's the hardest job that they do at the broadcasting, because speaking to the losing manager is the
worst.
It's a conversation. He don't want to be there. Yeah. You've got to ask him stupid questions, and not the girls that they ask him. There's no question that can be asked that is going to be like
bearable. It's hard.
He's not going to be able to say what he wants to say. You know, so it's the hard job. The girls do a hard job, and they do it fantastically well.
And not get cancelled.
Okay, that's the thing. You're going
to get cancelled.
Let's do a mock interview.
All right, you ain't manager no more.
Let's do a mock interview.
I'm tired of this crap.
All right, let's do a mock interview. Right, let's say, for instance, all right, answer me a question. Ask me a question. I'll be think of a manager in the league. I'll be Ruben Amorim. Ask me Ruben Amorim. We've lost. Go and ask me any question that you think you can ask me.
All right,
and I'll answer how I think he wants to answer it.
Okay, Ruben. How do you think that game went? Because you've not had a great season so far. Mm-hmm. And now you're knocking on the door of relegation. What do you reckon you need to do better?
Oh, Coley, honestly, mate, everything. We're having one. I didn't think it was as bad as this when I took the job. Board ain't got a Scooby. What can you do? I'm here, 4-year contract. Got to work with this lot until the end of the season, and we're trying to shift it about. I hope they give me time. Otherwise, I'll be back in the south of France.
What type of players are you going to be bringing in?
Good players. But that's it. Like, you know what I mean?
Good players.
Not really. The board said they was going to do this, and now they're not, and it's backtracking, and they make me do these interviews.
You're sacked in the morning.
You're sacked in the morning. What am I getting sacked for? I'm just being honest.
Yeah, but you've got club's interest at first.
Doing for wrongful sacking. I was being honest, mate. They sacked me for being honest.
They'll pay you up anyway, so it doesn't matter. But anyway.
All right, there's a few managers that's wanted that in the past, and they've never had a sacking.
Yeah, but that's it.
You got to get paid off.
Yeah, I know. Well, absolutely, 100%. There's all sorts of songs and dance, but listen, well,
that one. But Amorim, obviously, after that game,
I
don't know what his interview was like. I think he was fine, but Arteta was very, very agitated.
He was.
And I see you with his pain. You're 15 points behind the leaders after this game. 15 points. You can't get back.
No, you can't get back.
You're done. So there's no questions.
Do Arsenal get rid of him in the end? Has he been given long enough?
No, Arteta set the new culture over there. He's the man.
Arteta, 100%. You hear any Arsenal fans talking about him, mate? You remember where you was 5 years ago, and then relax.
Just relax.
You know what I mean?
You don't think they look at it and go,
no way.
Need someone who's going to get us a title.
Listen, it's hard to win a title.
Yeah.
Mikel Arteta has done enough to deserve at least another 2 seasons to go and sign him.
They think Arsenal.
If they sign him,
do they think Arteta go and win a title? Do you reckon?
I think they do, and I think they're right. I think if you go and give Arteta Isak, you go and sign him Isak or even Osimhen. I think next year...
Harry Kane.
I don't know what Harry Kane... You've been getting a bit of stick, haven't you?
Mate.
Harry Kane's going to Arsenal. A few Tottenham fans have been giving me stick at the kids' football. Mate, why are you saying Harry Kane's going to Arsenal?
Did you say to them, I'm not on the board at Arsenal. I'm not Harry Kane's agent. This is just
I was just saying it'd be good person to get if he's willing to come back to the Premier League, which I've heard he is. Oh, wow.
Oh, he's finding out. This is an exclusive. An exclusive. But do you know what it is, though?
Teddy Sheringham shout about Roy Keane.
Yeah, I know. I love Ted, but I think I don't know, man. Like, Roy's been out of the game for a long time, and I know he's brilliant at what he does. Mate, I tell you what, though, I'd watch the Amazon documentary of if Roy Keane took the job. First meeting. I'd love to be
a fly on the wall.
Imagine that with the players. Oh, that'd be belting.
Most of those players will fold.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know what hit him.
I don't know. He might do right, you know.
What with the style of... Listen, all right, what do you imagine him going in there
I couldn't imagine him going in and just battering people straight away.
Okay.
I'd expect the effect of... like Mourinho when he first come to Chelsea.
Yeah.
You know, when training was just, you had to be on it. It was different, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like he made sure everyone was on it. Everything had to be right.
Yeah.
But he was skilled.
I loved
doing that.
It would be an intense training session. And then if you do mess up, then good luck to you.
No, but don't you think Roy will be a little bit too intimidating for this generation? I'm not saying because I understand. Look, from our era, we could take a batter and we could take someone saying this and that about you, and you prove them wrong. Prove me wrong. Go on, prove me wrong.
I'd like to see his interviews after a loss.
I'd love to see it. I mean, listen, I've worked with him. He's a great geezer. He's
he's a great.
I find him funny.
Yeah, and he's a brilliant pundit.
Yeah.
And it would.
He says how it is, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's exactly what we're trying to say here. He says how it is. I don't think that the
world's not ready for that.
The younger generation in that dressing room is not.
That's a good point, actually. That's
for
a
the
good
truth.
Point.
They're not ready for the truth.
What's that film? You Can't Handle the Truth.
What is that from again?
That's Jack.
If Roy Keane was a boxer, his name would be Roy the Truth.
Yeah, that's what it would be.
But listen, I'd love to see it. But
that's that Jack Nicholson film, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Taxi.
It's not a Taxi, no.
You've been watching them different sites, mate.
On it, that Oh, my God.
Right, I got a Scooby.
Should we do some... Listen, we'll stick with Man United for a minute, because there's still... I thought these guys were gone, but there's still protests against the Glazers. These guys are sold up.
The Glazers out. 5,000 fan protests outside Old Trafford. I didn't even know they were still about. I thought Ineos had dispersed of them, yeah?
Oh, mate.
Glazers are still about, hanging around, taking their little money here and
dividends.
there. Dividends. Look, listen, I could understand where the 5,000 fan protests would come from.
Yeah.
We got to look at the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Manchester United used to be the richest club in the world.
Yeah.
Through football.
Charging £66 a ticket.
No, but through football. Through football, they were the richest club in the world. Through football, the honours, the prize money, everything. Now, they're having now to sack and cut staff from the club. Yes, some people might say that it wasn't sustainable to have that type of money being shelled out to the staff and the people that make Manchester
United. It's like Gary
United.
Neville made a point that ain't going to help them with what they're actually cutting, surely.
Yeah,
but a few staff lunches and some of the staff.
Yeah, but do you know what it is, Bridgie? Right, it's completely wrong. We talked about it, but you know, I know people who this is their job. Where they're CEOs. They go into companies that are failing.
Yeah.
And what they do is they cut everything. It doesn't matter where it is. It's just we cut this. We stop buying baked beans. We get this. And it all adds up. And then they try and rebuild from there. It's like it's a process that goes. It's wrong because ultimately you've got to have some empathy when you do it. When you're cutting these things, it shouldn't be the people. It shouldn't be the people that suffer at the bottom of the pile, you know, whether it be the people that have been there for years, the people that affect the club in such a way that it's not quantifiable on a spreadsheet because it's their life, their spirit, their personality they bring to the club. But what it should be done, the one problem at Manchester United, you go in there, you go, right, who's put their names on signing all of these players over the years and who's done the deals? Who's done the deals? I want... For all of these players' contracts, who's put this contract in?
I want to sue him.
First of all, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Get rid of all of them out of the club.
Well, they have.
Anyone,
They have.
right? Okay, and then the new people have come in. They look like they ain't done a much better job either. So you might have to backtrack on them and get rid of them as well, because the players that have been brought in the last window under the new administration still don't look like they're at it. So first of all, that's where the problem is. Yeah. It's like. For me, it's like you're trying to fix the air conditioning on the Titanic whilst it's going down. Plug the hole, mate. Bring in players that are going to make the club better on the pitch first and foremost, because then everything outside of that is and it shouldn't fall on the feet of the workers of the club. It shouldn't. That's why they're doing it.
Well, the protest leaders is a guy called Steve Crumpton.
Yeah.
From the 1958. Group, and he's warned the club that it might be facing financial Armageddon.
Oof.
Yeah, and it's hard to put a financial Armageddon and Manchester United in the same sentence because that. But when you look back, you look at Barcelona, the fall of Barcelona.
Yeah.
You kind of worry that can't be Manchester United.
Yeah.
Can't be.
Yeah.
Because they're saying the Glazers have mismanaged the club.
Right.
I don't know how they could have. It was a multi-billion pound project.
Mate, you've seen the world that
you can see.
And then the thing of the layoffs, get the layoffs and all of that, but then charging tickets.
We lay off a few players.
66. Don't forget about the layoffs. We're not going to forget about the layoffs, but other than the layoffs, you're charging £66 for kids tickets, exploiting their dreams, as someone says it here. And I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, how are you gonna even, when you got leaky roofs and you got mouses and rats running around the building, and you're charging £66 for the theatre of dreams? That's theatre of nightmares at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
There's the headline.
There's the headline there. Theatre of nightmares.
Any club charging £66 ticket for a kid is crazy, isn't it?
It's disgraceful.
This day and age.
But listen, that's just blown my mind because I didn't even know the Glazers were still there. But listen,
they're still lurking.
I don't know what percentage they got. They're lurking around. I'll tell you what, though.
Ineos has only got 25% of the club.
Yeah, but okay.
So they're in to manage the club now, and that's what they're doing. Ineos has said, I'll take 25%, but we get the
control
most
of the football.
Of the football club.
Well,
the Glazers are still with their 75% drinking.
Listen, they're in,
you lot go do your work.
Yeah, they're in Tampa, mate. They own the Buccaneers in Tampa, where I live. So they're very, very, very in that city. They're loved in that city.
Are they?
They will. Let me tell you, man. I know you're doing your protests here and that, but it won't touch a nerve with them. They're sitting on a beach somewhere. So
unbelievable.
But I agree with you. Do you know what I mean? I do think that the bang out of order how they've managed the club, but you know, I don't know the answer. Sorry, Man United fans. We hope you get. Yeah, we do hope. We do hope for you.
Because look, Manchester United are the flag bearers of the Premier League. Man.
Yeah.
I keep on saying it. They're a proper football club.
Yeah. Doesn't mean it can't go. Just because of that doesn't mean it can't go to shit.
Yeah,
it can't. Yeah, it can if it's mismanaged, but it shouldn't be mismanaged because. It's Premier League.
But it's everything working. It's getting the right people in to run it. Recruitment has to be right with the players you get in. The manager's got to be right. It ain't easy.
The build is
ain't easy.
Rebuild.
That's one thing. It definitely ain't easy.
That is very, very true. We'll quickly move on to Liverpool. They're just unassailable, innit? Are we all in agreement that it's done? It's done.
Yeah.
Romeo done.
I think we agreed that a couple of weeks ago.
We did, didn't we? Right.
We did as well. We did. But they haven't got our second gear, have they, this season?
I tell you where they weren't in second gear, though, in that first
PSG.
leg. Wow. What happened?
Mate, they were just there for the taking.
Mate.
Their legs were open like the Tesla doors. Take me.
It was just all over the place.
Mate, I swear down, I looked at that game, I was like, remember, we was texting, I was like, what's happened to Liverpool?
Yeah, where are they?
PSG are running rampant in them.
You give them a shout to go and win it as well,
Did you?
I did. I mean, listen, Anfield's going to be a different kettle of fish.
Oh, yeah.
But
a totally different game.
Yeah, be a totally different game. But the shouts were from the PSG players where they didn't realise how bad Liverpool were. I saw it something like that. You know, like
no way,
mate. And L'Equipe is brutal. The newspaper in France, right? It's
Yeah, that still read that, do you? Still read that, yeah?
So every now and then I have a little croissant and espresso. If you see me on the King's Road with L'Equipe,
he's pretending. That's what I do to know.
Coaching with a croissant.
And a little espresso. Like
on espresso, yeah?
Yeah, they are brutal, though, to be fair. But listen, I don't really know what to say. I think they can... They can win the game at home, at least draw the game and go through Liverpool. But, mate, smash and grab. Do you remember doing any smash and grabs?
He should have had a red card, by the way, Nunes.
Oh, yeah.
See it?
Yeah. Yeah,
I know, like, Walker just bounced straight to go up, but he's not gone for the ball at all. It's just one of them, he's annoyed. You know, when someone's running, you just feel, I'm going to trip him up. He's just gone for that. He's gone for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
And then he's gone and scored. He shouldn't have been on the pitch.
It was a big part of the game as well. That's the thing about it. That's what makes it worse. the
he didn't get sent off and he scores.
Salt in the wound, not just but he won the penalty.
Yeah.
So he was a big part of the game. So for a Southampton fan, he'd be like, he shouldn't even be on the pitch. Why is he here? Why is he here?
To be fair, even when they ain't played well, they've got a result. So if anyone was challenging, it would have been hard anyway. Because I feel like they've always grinded out a result, haven't they?
They've got everything, this Liverpool side. We can't speak highly enough. But we'll move on from them. And another interesting game, the Manchester City versus Forest game, because obviously I was at Forest, so I had my Forest hat on. I feel like I've played for the club.
Right, mate,
I'm behind them. I'm convinced.
I'm surprised you ain't coming here with a Forest shirt on.
Mate, listen, I get the Brian Clough and the green jumper.
Yeah, you should do.
I love it. I love everything.
You love it, innit?
Yeah, the lads down there.
They poisoned you, they have over there. What?
All Aina's done me, man.
Mate,
I love the lads
up there or something like that.
I love the lads up there. They're brilliant. But mate, and they done a number on Man City. It was just a number, wasn't it? It was just you knew how the game was going to go. Block the passing lanes, break with Hudson-Odoi. Elanga worked so hard. Defensive.
How good has he been this season,
mate?
Callum?
So good. So
Callum's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm really happy for him.
I'm really happy.
So I was chatting to him, Bridgie, and you know this because you've had injuries. He had a really bad Achilles injury, and for a winger, it took him about a year, 18 months to get back to his speed. And I asked him how he was, and he said that because that's where I saw it. I saw it like he'd come off of it because of his injury, but now he's like, no, I feel like I can just drive past players, and I'm like,
if he noticed,
it's great. It's great.
I always felt like there was people, because obviously he signed a great deal with Chelsea, didn't he? And then he kind of fell off. Do you reckon he felt like he was getting a bit of a stick?
It's hard. Mentally, it must be hard, Geese.
Yeah, that's what I say. Mentally, it must be mentally hard for him. And that's why you know when you look at Forest, you think he's a player that's he's had that thing round him to going to get you to where you should be.
He needed a club like that.
Coming in the environment.
He needed a club like that.
Yeah, so their spirit must be good.
When you see the owner as well, and he's coming down in the tunnel and he's like believing in you, and the manager's believing in you, that must be a good thing. The thing with Callum, like, he's a great kid, man. Like, really lovely boy. And he did get a lot too soon probably at Chelsea. But that was the price to keep him because he was going to go Bayern Munich.
Because he's that good, basically,
Because he's one of the best products that the academy has produced, and it's as simple as that. So they needed to keep him.
And you're seeing more of it now, obviously, because he's gone through those injuries.
Yeah. So now I'm just happy he's playing with a smile on his face again, without that pressure of being at a massive club, and the expectations are high, and you're getting paid loads of money. And people are expecting more from you, and you're still in development phase. He was still developing, and it was hard for him. And there's not a lot of people that's been in his shoes that's gone through that. He went away. He went to Germany. He went to Bayer Leverkusen, done all right, then came back, and then now he's hit right where he's supposed to hit. Because I look at him, I'm thinking, he's enjoying his football now. He's got his mate Aina with him. He's got Langer there as well, and it's a nice little unit where he's feeling comfortable to grow again, and he's gonna go from strength to strength. Yeah, I'm really happy for him.
Do you know what I'd advise him to do as well? I said, because once you're playing football and you're happy and enjoying yourself, there might be some bigger clubs sniffing around these lads say bigger clubs in stature, like, I don't know, Arsenal might want him, or even Chelsea might, maybe, or Man City, but don't run from what you got. There's something special happening there, and when you're playing and you're happy, it's massive. And you look back at your career and go, I played well there, but I was happy.
And you could go and be a legend there.
Yeah.
Imagine they get into the Champions League, and then you part of that surge.
Yeah.
Getting the boys up into that level. For me, I think Champions League for Nottingham Forest is a little bit far-fetched. It's not. It's there. It's reality. It's in a reality.
I mean, you're going to fall out.
It's a reality. But
where they are, it ain't far.
Yeah. No. I'm talking about being successful in it, not just being a part.
You mean latter stages?
Like doing something in the, because I think they get about 8 games. They'll get about 8 games to play Champions League football. Yeah. But I'll pose this question to you now. Yeah. I'll pose this question to you.
Wow.
What would you rather? Yeah. Win in the league.
Yeah.
Or, actually, no. I'll pose another question. Winning the league, or getting Champions League football for at least 3 years.
Oh, winning the league.
Win the league all day long.
Yeah, all day.
You win the league, and then what's next?
Well, whatever's
then you're
next. Like, if you give me the option of one of the two, you
for a Nottingham Forest team.
For this Nottingham Forest team, win the league.
Win the league.
Yeah, absolutely. The owners might think differently because they'll
for the next 3 years, because you might not win. If you get into Champions League football, you know what happens, innit? When you get to Champions League football, you kind of like your league form kind of falls off.
It's difficult to
it's difficult to sustain.
Yeah.
That's why I say it, because when you get into that domain of Champions League football,
that's just building the squad up.
Yeah.
More players.
Yeah.
Really?
But that's hard.
Like
to
when
get
Mourinho
the right
come in, he
players.
wanted 2 quality players in every position. But then it's keeping everyone happy at the same time as well.
Yeah, because remember, you are Nottingham Forest, and I should be playing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If that's the way some of these boys will look at it.
Yeah.
Well, we're not Manchester City. We're not.
That's where the recruitment comes in is really important.
Exactly, and that's why they got Edu.
Recruit character.
That's why they got Edu to oversee everything now.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
Toronto. Home to about 2.7 million people, Toronto is Canada's largest city, and the sprawling city filled with distinct neighborhoods offers a diverse mix of attractions to see, places to visit, and destinations to check out. Perhaps the most popular is the Niagara Falls, one of the 7 wonders of the world. A highly recommended way to see the famous falls is through the Maid of the Mist boat ride, which allows you to get right up close to it and immerse yourself in its enormity. Another popular site is the Dundas Square, often compared to New York's Times Square. The place is often used in the production of popular blockbuster hits because its setting is quite easy to film in. The city is also quite popular for its lineup of major art museums. The Art Gallery of Ontario, Toronto Gallery of Inuit Arts, and the Gardiner Museum of Ceramic Art makes Toronto a burgeoning art community. Great art alternatives can also be found lining the streets of Queen West, Ossington, Queen East, and the Distillery District. Every year, the art scene in Toronto is also taken over by contemporary artists during Nuit Blanche, an all-night arts festival that runs from dusk till dawn. You'll also want to walk by the Graffiti Alley in the Fashion District, Toronto's street that's legally tagged with an entire walking tour of murals by local street creatives. There's also the Distillery District, a cobblestone and usually carless street, featuring industrial houses that feature galleries, fashion designers, and artisan food products. Toronto is also host to an entire lineup of alternative dance and music fests. Some of the most popular include Digital Dreams, Electric Island, and Mad Decent Block Party. In June, travelers flock to the 17-day festival called Luminato. The Four Seasons Center for the Performing Arts is the place for opera and ballet shows. It is home to the Canadian Opera Company and the National Ballet of Canada. You may also want to try hiking or biking to the Toronto Islands nearby. It's just a ferry ride away. Plus, you'll get to see the city skyline at sunset. The sandy beaches are worth the trip, and the eclectic Wards Island is an interesting community to explore.
From the White House to Gaza, Kyiv to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on the Rizkan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Al Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's programme, high-stakes talks between senior delegations from Ukraine and the United States aimed at ending Russia's three-year-long war in Ukraine are held in Saudi Arabia in the port city of Jeddah. Well, ahead of those talks, Kyiv conducts its largest drone attack on Moscow since the war began. The Russian army says it intercepted 337 drones across the country. Polls are open and people across Greenland are casting their ballots in a closely watched election which could boost US influence over the mineral-rich island, while President Donald Trump has pledged to take control of Greenland. And after a sharp fall in US stocks in Monday trading, some are asking, is the US economy headed for a recession? Well, amongst the stocks feeling the heat, Tesla. Coming up in just a moment, we will ask the CEO of one of the most quintessentially classic car companies, the Morgan Motor Company, to reveal his company's electric ambitions. Hello and welcome to the programme. Ukrainian and US officials have today been holding crunch talks in Saudi Arabia to try to find a path towards ending the war with Russia. Well, those talks got underway just a matter of hours after Kyiv's forces launched their largest drone attack on Moscow to date. Well, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he hopes the meeting in Jeddah will mend fences with Washington. This after last month's clash with President Donald Trump in the Oval Office. Well, yesterday, President Zelensky suggested Kyiv would be proposing an aerial and naval ceasefire with Russia at those talks in Jeddah. Well, let's get more now. We can speak to Al Arabiya's Washington bureau chief, Nadia Bilbassi-Charters, who's following the talks for us in Jeddah. Nadia, great to have you with us. The US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said his expectations for the meeting was good. I mean, what's the mood like? Is it one of optimism?
It's pretty positive, actually. Just a while ago, I spoke with one of the Ukrainian spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he described the talks as very constructive. He said that what we have seen in the Oval Office, this tension between President Zelensky and President Trump, is water over the bridge now. We're talking about it's being repaired, as he said, and we're moving forward. As you know, Rubio has told us on the plane on our way to Jeddah that basically he wanted to see some kind of a ceasefire achieved. The negotiation in terms of details, whether we're talking about territories or peacekeeping forces or Ukraine joining NATO, all these issues will be discussed later. Of course, there is, as you know, a Russian demand that Ukraine should never be part of NATO, but there is other things too. But he also said that even the signing of the mineral deals with the Ukrainians is not really a top priority for this conference. What's important now is for the Ukrainians to agree into some kind of framework that they can say, take it to the Russians, as we know that the president's envoy, Steve Witkoff, will go to Moscow and he will meet with President Putin. And my understanding is he will take whatever achieved here in Jeddah and he will propose it to the Russians.
Okay, so a temporary truce could be an outcome from this, and a framework could be developed and presented to the Russians. Another big part of this, Nadia, was repairing relations between the United States and Ukraine after that unexpected scene in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago. Has that now happened, do you think?
I believe so. I mean, this is really what the Ukrainian has been talking about and giving us indication that what happened before is now in the past, and we're talking about a new stage and a new era. Actually, Andrei Yermak, who is the President Zelensky advisor, said to us a while ago that nobody needs this war to end than the Ukrainians. And therefore, they are concentrating on the efforts of how they can meet the American demands. Now, the word demands, maybe it's a strong word, because I asked him, did you hear from the Americans anything basically resemble to the demands? And he said, no, I won't use this word, but I will say that basically we are talking about constructive dialogue, we're listening to each other, and I think the atmosphere has been described as very, very positive. But don't forget, this is Secretary Rubio. He is the head of the diplomacy in the United States, and he's been very nuanced when it comes to talking about these issues, unlike President Trump, who is very bombastic and he used threatening language that obviously not very diplomatic. So from that point of view, I think what they hope to achieve today is some kind of, as you said, a framework that they can go forward and build on these negotiations. And today is not the end of it. Today is the beginning of this long road to end this war. And the U.S. delegation is saying that basically the only person who can do that is President Trump, because he can talk to both sides.
Nadia, in our headlines, we were talking about the Ukrainian drone attacks on Russia last night, some of the biggest since the war began. And I was just wondering how you think that might have impacted the tone and the mood of those talks in Jeddah.
One of the questions we asked is precisely that. And the Ukrainians dismiss it, saying basically it did not come up in the conversation. And the U.S. and the Ukrainian delegation is focusing on a bigger picture. Every day is going to be an attack, and every day is going to be a counterattack. And therefore, this is why the important issue for the U.S. delegation is really finding this framework to end this war. Because as long as we have these attacks continuing, is more soldiers are being killed, and the blood has to stop, as the U.S. will say, and President Trump actually has been saying that hundreds of thousands of troops have been killed, and therefore we need to think of an end to this conflict, and there is no military solution for it. The only way forward is negotiation. And they said you have to be prepared, both the Ukrainians and the Russians, to give concessions. Without concessions, we cannot really talk about ending this war. And there is no end through military means. And as you know, the U.S. has stopped military aid to Ukraine, and the previous administration has been extremely supportive. And without the U.S. help, whether it's militarily or even diplomatically in the UN and other places, the Ukrainians are in a very, very weak position.
Yeah, one of the other things the United States has done is to cut off intelligence sharing with Ukraine. We got some indications from President Trump himself that that was only a temporary measure. I mean, might one of the outcomes of these talks be a full reinstatement of that intelligence sharing arrangement, do you think?
Yes. When they started this meeting, the Ukrainians were hoping that at the end of the day, which is, I think they can conclude the meeting very soon, if it's not concluded already, because we're going to have a briefing shortly with Waltz and Rubio to tell us more about it. I believe that the hope was that they will resume the intelligence sharing. But saying that, Secretary Rubio told us, I asked him specifically about this point on the plane, and he said that they have not cut off all intelligence sharing, and the Ukrainians has enough, in his words, to ward off Russian attacks. So they believe that it was what they did maybe was not vital for the military operation, and there is some kind of cooperation. But the military assistance in general, as you know, is not a popular topic in the U.S., especially among Republicans in Congress. Even if the White House decided to cut it by themselves, I think eventually the Congress will vote, especially among the Republicans in the House, that they will cut off all this aid. And President Trump wanted to negotiate this rare mineral deal in order basically to compensate for what he said, a $350 billion that the U.S. gave to Ukraine for no return. And the war is continuing, and our money is wasted, and we have to bring all this money back to the U.S.
Just looking forward to sort of what happens next in the process. I mean, after these talks are over, there are still going to be three sticking points, aren't there, between the Ukrainians and the Russians? Three really important ones anyway. One about territory, one is about peacekeepers in Ukraine, and the other is about NATO membership. Has Russia shown any signs that it might be willing to compromise on any of those three issues, Nadia?
Well, look, I think the U.S. has been adopting this position long before, and even during the Biden administration, that Ukraine will not be part of NATO. And that's understood by the Ukrainians as well. So from that point of view, I think the Ukrainians are prepared to accept this result. In terms of peacekeeping, the Americans, and Rubio actually praised in particular the French and the British position, and he said the American support deploying European forces as peacekeeper in Ukraine. Now, the Russians are opposing that, but the Americans somehow dismissing it as it's not a big deal because we really haven't negotiated yet. We just wanted to stop the war by a partial ceasefire with some kind of cessation of hostility, and then we can talk about the other issues. And the third one is the most difficult, which is the territories. And I think there is some kind of truth, accepted truth, that Crimea will be still part of Russia, regardless that it was occupied by the Russians. But I think Ukraine will not get it back. They will negotiate on something else, but they have to know the border, and this is what Secretary Rubio told us. Once we establish the border, then it's very easy, the parameters, it's very easy to negotiate on everything else around it.
Okay, those talks, of course, happening in Jeddah, and Saudi Arabia has been the scene of really major and important diplomatic exchanges the last couple of weeks on this particular issue. Moving forwards, just wondering what role you see, this is my last question, for Saudi Arabia in this whole process.
It's a very important role. Rubio himself again said that very, very few countries in the world that play in this role. I mean, in a way, you can say that Saudis now are replacing Switzerland on neutral ground, where conflicts from different parts of the world, where both parties will go and negotiate in confidence and in secrecy. The Saudis emerged in the region as that player because they have very good relations with both the Ukrainians and the Russians. Last night, we have seen the warm embrace by the Crown Prince to President Zelensky on his official visit here, and equally has very good relations with the Russians. And both, I think, the Russians and the Ukrainians trust the Saudis, that they don't have an alternative motives in terms of undermining these talks. So I believe that we have the first round, obviously, when Sergei Lavrov met with Secretary Rubio and the American delegations here 2 weeks ago in Riyadh. And now today we have the same team, minus Witkoff, talking to the Ukrainians. And I think we will have another round of talks. Could be in Washington. We don't know yet where is the place.
Okay, well, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you very much indeed, Nadia Bilbassi Charters, Al Arabiya's Washington Bureau Chief. Thanks again. Well, the US has been saying it expects substantial progress during those ceasefire talks with Ukraine in Jeddah. Well, one of the hot topics expected to come out of this meeting is that of intelligence sharing. Well, while pressure mounts to seal a ceasefire deal, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he did not expect to sit in a room in Jeddah with the Ukrainians, quote, drawing lines on a map towards a final deal. Well, let's get more analysis. We can speak now to Colonel Brendan Kearney, who is a military affairs analyst and former chief of staff for US Marine Corps forces in Europe. He joins us from California. Colonel Kearney, great to have you with us. Are you optimistic those talks in Jeddah are going to yield some results?
good to be with you, Tom. I am optimistic. I think the very early reporting that's coming out of those meetings is that the Ukrainians seem to be pleased, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, giving a thumbs up. So those are always pretty good indicators early on. But we'll just have to wait and see until it's over with and we get a readout.
Yeah, Marco Rubio said he was going to listen to Ukraine. I was just wondering, what do you think he's going to be listening out for?
Well, again, this is a new administration. And even though Marco Rubio had a distinguished career as a senator, I think for him to suddenly be placed in this role, he's only 6-7 weeks into it. The most important thing I think any interlocutor can do in these type of situations is listen. Hear what the Ukrainians have to say, and then base your further actions, your statements on what they're saying. Listening is a lost art, so I'm pleased to hear him saying that.
Yeah, I mean, the US delegation has made various concessions, it would appear, on behalf of Ukraine. We haven't had too many concessions from the other side, have we?
No, we have not, and that's not unusual with dealing with the Russians. They are not the best country to deal with when it comes down to diplomatic negotiations. There's some real tendencies towards forgetting things, previous promises, and making statements that just bear little reality. So it'll be interesting to watch this as we get closer to it as to what the Russians really mean when they talk about wanting some type of ceasefire, some type of peace.
And what do you think Ukraine was trying to achieve with that massive barrage of drone strikes on Russian territory last night? I mean, the biggest since the war began. I mean, what sort of a position and what sort of strategy are you seeing the Ukrainians setting up for themselves there?
Well, I think, again, we have to remember that over the last couple of weeks, the Ukrainians have been at the receiving end of some pretty massive rocket, intercontinental missiles, drone strikes from Russia that have killed a number of Ukrainians and done a great deal of damage. So I think what the Ukrainians are doing is sending a message not only to Russia and the world, but also to the United States that they are going to defend themselves. And, we have to admire them for doing that. They're not going to get punched in the face on a repeated basis without punching back. So I think that's the message they're sending. Don't trifle with this because we will continue to defend ourselves.
The Europeans say they want a just and lasting peace. I mean, do you see the European vision as being at odds with the vision of this new administration in Washington?
I think a little bit. And again, I relate this to the education process that the new administration is going through. I respect the Europeans. They have a long, very long history with Russia. And they hold Russia at arm's length because they don't trust them. And I believe their approach is a little bit more realistic than what Washington, D.C. is taking. But again, I'm hoping that as Washington gets more experience with dealing with the Russians, that they will realize that these are people that you have to be very, very careful with in terms of listening to what their negotiation positions are and to what it is they are actually proposing. Because if there's a way to twist the words down the road and back out of commitments, the Russians have honed that to a fine science over the years. But hopefully we'll get peace out of this, but we're just going to have to wait and see.
Indeed, that's everyone's hope. And obviously, not much compromise, as we've been saying, from the Russian side yet on these key issues like territory, NATO membership for Ukraine, European peacekeepers on the ground in Ukraine. I'm just wondering whether you think, knowing the Russians as you do, whether you think these sort of maximalist demands by the Russians are part of a strategy, a tactic ahead of some hard negotiations.
Oh, yes, I agree with you, Tom. The Russians are masterful in their diplomatic negotiations. They have oftentimes clearly come out ahead of negotiations with the United States, especially when we had weak administrations. That's not the case right now. And even though Donald Trump appears to be more pro-Russian than pro-Ukraine, I do think that he's a pragmatic man. And what he doesn't want to do is be labeled as a failure. And if we let things happen to Ukraine that the world will criticize us for, that's failure. And I just don't see him doing that. So we're going to have to be very careful with our negotiating team and what is accomplished with Russia and with Ukraine and Europe. There's quite a few players in this game.
Yeah, just lastly, I mean, what do you think the United States is going to do in the event that a deal cannot be struck with the Russians? What's their sort of plan B?
Oh, I think plan B is that we go back to just clearly supporting the Ukrainian efforts and hoping that maybe some other approach from Europe or Russia coming to some type of awareness will go ahead and then become plan A, plan B to plan A. But I think the U.S. will completely back Ukraine if it turns out Russia is being insincere or just not being realistic in their approach with these negotiations.
Okay, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your analysis. Colonel Brendan Kearney, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, let's get some more analysis, and we can speak to Boris Volodarsky, former captain in Russia's special forces, the GRU Spetsnaz, who joins us now from Vienna. Captain Volodarsky, great to have you with us again. That Ukrainian delegation is today meeting with America's top diplomat in Jeddah and a large American delegation. How would you advise Ukraine to approach those talks in Saudi Arabia? And what sort of a tone do you think they should try and strike with the US delegation?
Of course, every one of us understands, and the Ukrainian delegation and the Ukrainian president especially, they understand very, very well that cooperation and mutual cooperation with the American side is extremely important for the Ukrainians, especially at this moment of the war. At the same time, the Ukrainian delegation realizes very well that they are being the American side is demanding concessions from one side, while they do not ask the Russian side, which is the aggressor, for any concessions, which sounds a little bit strange. Another thing which the American side is pressing is to sign the minerals agreement, which again can be viewed cautiously from several sides. But in any way, I believe the Ukrainian delegation came to Saudi Arabia with a desire and intention to improve relations with the American side as much as possible, in spite of the events that we know happened on the 28th of February.
Okay, I'm going to pick up on the main points you mentioned. I'll come back to the minerals deal, but let's just talk about, recent tensions between Washington and Kyiv. We heard from President Trump just a couple of days ago saying, quote, "I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine." I just wondered why you think it is that he's finding it harder to deal with Kyiv than he is with Moscow. Do you think it's something personal?
First of all, it seems like he has animosity, personal animosity. He and Vice President Vance have personal animosity towards President Zelensky. And of course, we know about the events of the previous term of President Trump. This is one thing. Another thing is that there is a quite obvious collision between President Trump and Russia and President Putin. And so in this view, he is, of course, very much interested to get as much as possible from Ukraine, asking for nothing, no concessions, no steps forward from Russia. And it seems like he is intended to press as much possible on Ukraine to reach his goal, that is to stop the war without any benefits for the Ukrainian side, and promising no security to the Ukrainian side.
You say offering no security to the Ukrainian side, but the whole point of the minerals deal that we were talking about earlier, and we've put this question to analysts before on this channel, the minerals deal does include security guarantees, because by having US interests represented all over Ukraine, essentially Ukraine is under the US umbrella, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not at all, because President Trump is considering his signature on an agreement or on what he calls a deal as a guarantee for the Ukrainian side, which of course is not the case. Even in the involvement and multi-billion involvement of American companies in the Ukrainian industry is not any guarantee at all. I do not even mention that all professionals say that the minerals amount in Ukraine is not a mineable resource, and to start any profitable mining or possible profitable mining in Ukraine, one needs a multi-billion investment, and that might probably start in a period of about 10 to 15 years, which is, of course, not interested to any American company. So this deal, minerals deal, seems not the principal point, actually. But even if we remember the agreement of 1994, where there was an international agreement signed by several countries like Britain, France, the United States, and Russia, and no one observed any points that were in this agreement, and there was no guarantee at all when Russia wanted its aggression against Ukraine. So what kind of guarantee this minerals deal can give to Ukraine? What kind of serious guarantee it can give? None at all.
Okay, it sounds like you're not convinced by the minerals deal. The US Secretary of State, the top diplomat in the Trump administration, says his delegation wants to listen to Ukraine. That, he says, is the objective of this phase of the process there in Jeddah. What do you think he wants to hear?
He wants to hear that the Ukrainian side is eager to sign unconditional surrender to the Russian side. That's what he really wants to hear. He does not want to hear that they agree to limitations, that they agree to stop firing in the sea, in the air, and other proposals. What the Ukraine is definitely ready to present. What they want, actually, they want Putin's decision, Putin's point of view on this, and Putin wants unconditional surrender and nothing else. They want exactly what they demanded. That Ukraine does not join NATO, that Ukraine doesn't have an army, that Ukraine doesn't want the European Union, that the NATO moves back to the positions of 97, and all that sort of things that we all know about.
Okay, just lastly, Captain Volodarsky, what's the United States' next move if it emerges from these talks and from subsequent phases in the process that there simply isn't a deal to be made between Ukraine and Russia? What does America do next?
Well, there are several possibilities. One possibility is that President Trump forgets this story and says that he's not interested in that anymore. That, for example, he is much more interested to double or even triple the tariffs on Canada, and he's more interested in the Mexico deals. That because Ukraine doesn't want to negotiate, the deal is not interesting for him anymore. Then Marco Rubio might consider himself also in the situation where he might probably decide to retire rather than to continue in the situation that goes on today with Elon Musk and others. Well, there are various possibilities, and we cannot definitely predict what is going to happen if we have this outcome as you described.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Really great speaking to you, as always. Captain Boris Volodarsky, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
In other news, voting is now underway in Greenland. Well, this is an election which will determine the shape of the 31-seat local parliament. And that will give a clearer idea of whether this mineral-rich island is likely to opt for independence. Well, a break from Denmark isn't on the ballot, but it is on everybody's mind. Well, on a number of occasions, the US President Donald Trump has expressed his intention to take control of this strategic Arctic island, which is home to 56 or 57,000 people. Well, polls closed tonight at 2200 Greenwich Mean Time, but results won't be known for a couple of weeks. Well, the issue of independence has, as I've been saying, been a prominent feature throughout these last few weeks and throughout the election campaign. But Greenland's representative in the Danish parliament claims that these elections have been influenced by external forces.
We've seen it many times over the election period here in Greenland that there's been influence from the outside. We've been seeing people, handing out dollars, and I think it's important to say that the election here shouldn't be something that other countries are affecting. It should be something that is completely up to us as Greenlanders.
OK, well, let's get some more analysis. We can speak now to Kuno Fenker, who is a Greenlandic MP who joins us from the capital, Nuuk. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. As we've been saying, independence isn't actually on the ballot. So what are the results of this election going to tell us, do you think?
Well, if the people choose Naleraq and other independence parties, it will be about independence and the sovereignty of Greenland. We know that independence is a utopia to think of, but we just want to own our own country and have sovereignty of our country. So if people choose us, and if we can form a government that wants to activate our possibility to have a sovereign state and that we can start the negotiations, it will be a vote for independence, if you can say that.
OK, now the population of Greenland is variously reported as being 56 or 57,000. Perhaps you can correct me on that one. But I was wondering, is there a general consensus amongst the population on this issue of autonomy?
Yes, it's been on the ballot for 46 years, and we had the possibility to become a sovereign state for 16 years. So it's been on the ballot for every election. And we want to put a stop for that, and we need to activate it and be willing to work on our independence. And then the people in the end will choose if the negotiated agreement with the government of Denmark or any other country, if Denmark wants to secede from Greenland. That is what the threat is. They are threatening us by leaving Greenland militarily and also not giving us any subsidies anymore. So if Denmark wants to secede from Greenland, the problem is that other countries, other powerful countries, will become interested in Greenland. And that is what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, just for the benefit of our viewers, Greenland was a colony of Denmark. And as you alluded to 46 or so years ago, in 1979, Greenland gained self-rule. I mean, what is the feeling in Greenland towards the people of Denmark? How do people feel about Denmark?
I think that the feeling is fine, but Denmark has done a lot of atrocities against Greenlanders. But we are absolutely willing to say that, let's dig up all the dirt and have a truth and reconciliation agreement so that we can move forward instead of looking back and all kinds of dirt is being digged up from the past. So we just want to own our own country, which was annexed by Denmark in 1953. So Greenlanders want their own country and we want to be sovereign, but we are absolutely willing to and know that we have to work with other sovereign states.
OK, so if Greenland had to choose between Denmark or the United States, in terms of which country would have sovereignty over Greenland, which one would it choose?
Other countries shouldn't have direct sovereignty of Greenland. We will take the full sovereignty of Greenland and we will be able to give out some of the sovereignty in regards to defense and security if that is necessary. Our rule clearly states that we should start the negotiations with Denmark and that Denmark should adhere to our right to external self-determination, which is sovereignty, and that we should come to a fair agreement with Denmark. That could be in a Commonwealth system or a free association. The only main thing Greenland, which is non-negotiable for Greenland, is that we want to have sovereignty of our country, and that also is against any other sovereign state. But we clearly know that the United States is present in Greenland in the Bidufik Space Base, and Denmark has a defense agreement from 1951, which they made without the consent of Greenlanders. So, of course, if we become a sovereign state, we will need to have a bilateral agreement with the United States about the defense and security of the North American continent.
Okay, well, we're out of time. I'd love to talk to you for longer, but thank you very much for speaking to us. Kuno Fenke, Greenlandic MP.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Now, after one of the worst single-day sell-offs in Tesla's history, President Donald Trump is throwing his support behind his advisor, the billionaire Elon Musk, vowing to buy one of his cars. Well, Tesla has been struck this year by competition from rival electric vehicles, particularly those from China. Well, Tesla shares have plummeted 45% during the course of 2025, and on Monday they tumbled more than 15%. This is the lowest rate since October of last year. Well, Tesla might be one of the first names you think of when you think of an electric car company. But with changes in laws surrounding emissions in most countries, a lot of car companies are having to roll out fully electric or hybrid models now. And by the way, that includes some of the classic car manufacturers like the Morgan Motor Company, now in the fourth generation of family stewardship. Well, Morgan began building cars in the year 1909. Well, at their headquarters in the United Kingdom, they're working on an experimental prototype, the XP1, which will blaze the trail for future models, many of which could be electric. Well, let's find out more now. We can speak to Matthew Hold, the managing director of the Morgan Motor Company, who joins us from Worcestershire in the UK. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. I mean, it sounds like Morgan is managing to keep up with the times and remain true to your roots at the same time. Of course, Morgan, very much the antithesis of the mass-produced car. How many cars actually come off the production line every year?
So this year we'll do about 650 cars, and they will go out to markets across the world.
Okay, is that number going up?
It is going up, yeah. So yeah, we anticipate next year it will be closer to 850.
Well, that's a sizable percentage increase. Who is the typical Morgan customer?
Oh, it's a question I get asked quite a lot. It's a really difficult one to answer. There's not really so much as a typical Morgan customer. It's a really, really broad church. But I think what you can distill is everybody loves cars, they love motoring, and they love to be unique. And so buying a Morgan is a very unique experience. Every car is tailored specifically to the customer, and they're all built to order individually. So it's very much a unique experience buying a Morgan. And people respect the craftsmanship that goes into these cars because they're incredibly hand-built. There's more hand hours, hand manual skills that go into building a Morgan than any other car.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it. If only 2 are coming off the production line on average every day of the week. What are your main markets?
So at the moment, our key markets have been the UK and Europe historically, but over the last year, we've been really charging across the Middle East. So we've been on sale now in Dubai for about 18 months. At the end of last year, so October time, we launched again in the United States of America. So that's been a really big growth market for us, and the demand has been extremely high over there.
What sort of a reception are you getting in the Middle East, Tim?
Great. I mean, people love the cars. They love the fact that they're so custom and they are very unique. It's quite an exclusive product, and more so, it's an exclusive experience. Purchasing a Morgan and owning a Morgan. So they seem to be going down very well, and we've just done a very custom 50-off car called the Midsummer, and about 9 of those cars found their way into to hands in the Middle East.
Wow. Well, I'll be looking out for those on the road. I mean, what do you think it is about a Morgan that makes it so appealing to this particular market here in the Middle East?
So the market in the Middle East, what we see is people really like and really cherish bespoke quality items, real luxury items, and really a luxury experience to go along with that. So when you buy a Morgan, it's very much like buying a fine tailored suit. So everything is selected and chosen for your particular taste and your palate. And that seems to be resonating really well with the Middle Eastern market.
And you got a new range out, the Super Sport. Just tell us a little bit about that.
So that's the car that you can see behind me today. So this is a car that It's been launched today in Malvern. It's a car that we think will help grow our audience across the globe. So it's a car that's more dynamic, so it's more dynamically capable than any car that's gone before it from Morgan, but equally, it's a more usable car. So it'll be useful in the middle of a hot summer in the Middle East, but also it can navigate a very cold and wet winter in the UK.
You haven't mentioned the E word yet, electric vehicles. You've got a prototype, I gather, that you're working on. I mean, do you think that's the face of things to come for Morgan?
So eventually, our customers are telling us that they still want to buy internal combustion engine cars. So as long as we're allowed to do that, we will still do it. We do intend to bring electric vehicles into the model lineup, but they're still a little way off. At the moment, we're concentrating on developing the technology to enable us to do it the right way. And for us, our cars are incredibly lightweight. They're really high performance. So it's making sure that the technology we utilize speaks to those messages and speaks to that core DNA.
Yeah, because I mean, you've got to adapt to the changing times. I mean, obviously, sustainability is one of the main buzzwords out there. I mean, that's a really hard challenge for the auto industry if you don't go down the electric vehicle route. I mean, how do you think you're going to navigate these rather complicated times?
So building electric vehicles is one part of the story, and we've got a really talented engineering team with a lot of experience, working with other manufacturers for developing that kind of technology. But we look at the sustainability piece much more broadly. And if you take into account the way we manufacture our cars, which is inherently sustainable, so there's no big tools, there's not a huge amount of power consumption in our factory. We joke that the factory is powered by Weetabix because everybody, it's the guys on the tools making things by hand. That's how we build our cars. Equally, the materials that we use in the car are inherently sustainable. So we use more recycled content in the aluminium that we use than any other car manufacturer. The wood that we source for our wooden bodies is sourced sustainably in our own forest. So we have an inherently sustainable kind of backdrop for the company, and I think that's a key part of the story going forward.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's too much plastic on a Morgan.
So lots of leather, aluminium.
Exactly, sounds like that. There can be such a thing, though, to answer my question, as a handcrafted classic Morgan that just happens to be electric. But does it lose a bit of its DNA by being electric, do you think?
I don't think so. So when we look at the DNA, core principles for Morgan are lightweight, it's the craftsmanship, it's the coach building, the way we build our cars, it's the types of materials that we use, it's all the touch points, these exquisite touch points for the customer. So very rarely is the powertrain at the center of that. And so for us, we believe we can keep our DNA alive and we can keep the core principles of Morgan manufacturing going forward. And one day that will just mean that they're powered with an electric powertrain. But I think we know the direction that we're going in, and we're getting ourselves well prepared for that.
I mean, some people have taken matters into their own hands. I was just looking online and I saw a couple of resto mods bearing the Morgan brand. These are, of course, for the benefit of our viewers, cars that have had the combustion engine removed and an electric engine inserted. There are a couple of them out there. What do you think of them?
I think if it means people are getting out and enjoying their Morgans on the road, then I fully support it. I think for us, it's not about what powers the car. It's about how much enjoyment you get from using it, and that's really what we're about. We've got this ethos in the company of driving joy. Not only is that enjoying the drive, but it's also driving the joy and having a joyful experience of ownership of the car. So that's key for us. So yeah, I'm happy that they're doing that.
Okay. I mean, we were just talking about the sort of the general phasing out of combustion engines. Some countries obviously moving ahead on that faster than others. What role do governments play, do you think? And what do you think of the role played by governments in dictating what's on the road and what isn't on the road?
Well, they clearly dictate the narrative. I think, as an engineer myself from an engineering background, I think you can allow engineers to solve these types of problems. And, we've got a great set of engineers at Morgan that are capable of solving these types of problems. So I think it's imperative that the government, whilst they must take must take a lead. They allow the solutions to come from industry.
And in terms of raising the profile of Morgan, obviously, you're not in the business of mass production, but making the brand more visible in new markets like the Middle East that you mentioned. I wondered if you might be thinking of trying out some more radical marketing tactics. And I was just looking at Jaguar that's unveiled the Type 00 or Type 00, I'm not sure which it is, generating lots of discussion and debate, and it's clearly working. Is that the sort of thing Morgan might do?
I'm not sure that really sits with the way we generally do business. I think we've been really pleased that the way, the team have done a great job here today with our live launch. We want to send out the message that Morgans are the most exquisite, the most hand-built sports cars. And I think word of mouth will carry so far, and the rest of the team here will do the remainder. So I think that's the message from us. And we follow the beat of our own drum here.
All right, so you've been making cars since 1909. 4 generations of Morgan family members have been involved. Just sort of sum up for us what the enduring appeal of a Morgan is, in your opinion.
Well, Morgan is the only place in the world that you can come and see your car handcrafted the way it is. There's a huge amount of passion that goes right the way through the production line, right the way through kind of the engineering and all the stuff. We invite customers to come and visit their cars in production. There's a sense of family and community that you just will not find anywhere else in the world. And I think that's some of the most endearing characteristics. And we make such beautiful cars. So, we've been in business for 116 years, and hopefully the next 116 years will be equally as exciting.
Yeah, so what is your vision, just lastly, for Morgan for the next 5 to 10 years?
So you'll see more cars that are like the Super Sport behind us. We'll definitely be pushing forward with other internal combustion engine models eventually. And, in the 10-year horizon, you'll definitely see your first electric Morgan.
Just lastly, I wonder if you could just step to one side so we can see that lovely car just behind you, because we can't see an awful lot of it. Let's bring it up full screen. Just tell us what we're looking at here, Matthew.
So you are looking at the Super Sport. So this is one of the cars that we've used on the launch today. So it is a 3-litre turbocharged engine, 0 to 60, 3.9 seconds. And all those body panels that you're looking at, so all those beautiful painted panels are handcrafted, every single one of them made by hand in our factory in Worcestershire.
Well, that is a stunning piece of engineering, it has to be said. Thank you so much. We're going to leave it there. Just want to say a very big thank you to you. Matthew Hall, CEO of the Morgan Motor Company. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for on today's edition of Global News Today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
Your Royal Highness, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gamble.
We've just heard a highly controversial speech from the new Vice President, J.D. Vance. What's your take?
As an observer who has been a fan of the American experience and experiment, I think America can be more friendly to the rest of the world and engage with them on that basis. It's not a matter that people want to take advantage of America's niceness, because America has always held itself for its interests very bravely and very strongly. So I think a little bit of smile and not necessarily a hug, but definitely an embracing attitude towards others.
You think it was a bit abrasive then?
Well, not so much abrasive as not sounding nice.
Yeah. Do you think that that room felt a sense of disquiet?
Absolutely. And when there was clapping, there was very little clapping. And I don't know if anybody felt like I felt, but definitely it was a signal that his words did not get the clapping that maybe he expected or that he wanted.
Did you
and
hear?
I don't think he wanted clapping.
Did you hear some truth, perhaps harsh truths?
Well, when he's addressing Europe, all of us have truths about Europe. The fact that it is divided, the fact that it is not playing the role that it should be playing, the fact that they're not spending as much on defense and things like that. We all agree on that. So I agree with him on that, definitely.
Tell me this, when you think about what happens next with regards to the Middle East, also a sense of serious disquiet. We've heard very little from the Arab foreign ministers that are here on the ground in Munich, so far at least. In your mind, are they any closer to finding an alternative plan for Gaza?
I'm sure. And I'm surprised that not just about Gaza, but the whole Palestinian issue. When people say that, well, we presented a plan from America, there are no alternatives to it. The place is full of alternatives. There is the Arab Peace Initiative. That's a very comprehensive alternative that will take into account a final ending to the conflict between Israel and its Arab neighbor. On Gaza, as I understood from newspaper accounts and statements from officials, there were talks about the day after engaged with America and with Europe and other players in the area that were suddenly, abruptly confronted with Mr. Trump's ethnic cleansing plan. So that, to me, is a surprise.
Yeah. The argument from the administration is that on October 7th, Americans died, and Americans should not be unsafe anywhere in the world. And beyond that, neither should U.S. allies. How can Saudi Arabia bridge that gap, bridge that conversation?
Well, I wish Americans would also keep in mind that before October 7th and since October 7th, the people who died most were the Palestinians with American weapons. So if there is going to be a quid pro quo, Americans died and Palestinians died and so on, we're never going to end the situation and reach a final solution. I think we should look forward to the future. Now October 7th is behind us. Now we have to go forward. Mr. Trump's plan is not selling anywhere. So the alternative is either go back to the Arab Peace Initiative, or they can think of doing Gaza along with the Marshall Plan in Europe after the Second World War. America rebuilt the whole continent, let alone the small strip of Gaza, while the people stayed in place. They didn't move the Europeans out of Europe in order to build that. So they can do it very well in Gaza.
When you think about what's going to happen next, there are a lot of questions about what that potential alternative plan can be. Given the weaknesses that you mentioned that are happening here in Europe, do you anticipate that Europe and the Arab states could come up with a plan together?
They already have, as you know, the Alliance for the Two-State Solution. That is a European and an Arab combination. And I know that they've been working with the US and with the United Nations in order to formulate what can be a more peaceful outlook and result of discussions after October 7th. So give them a chance at least. Let them see, what they can do. But so far, this preempting and unilaterally making declarations is not helpful.
Yeah. Tell me this. Is there anything about the Trump administration that you've seen so far that has been good for the Arab world?
Well, what I can say is that, Mr. Trump has had experience with us from the first term. He said he wants to visit the area. and I would encourage him to do that. And he wants to have more engagement, let's say, with Saudi Arabia. He just announced a summit between him and Mr. Putin in Riyadh. That is something that the kingdom has already welcomed. So that is a good sign.
Yeah.
And I think he can take advantage of the position, not just of Saudi Arabia, but of the Arab and Muslim world in the world, to make the world a better place.
Do you think that the situation with Palestine can be resolved in a similar summit in Riyadh?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your Royal Highness, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Ms. Gamble.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
they've got to have a vote and a say.
It's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
Presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on The Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Your Excellency, I want to kick off by just asking you to walk us through how you see the role of public service, because it's not only a family legacy, but it's also a passion.
Just for some context, for those who might not know, my grandfather was Shaheed Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He was the first democratically elected Prime Minister of Pakistan. He gave us our constitution. He was a voice for the disenfranchised, and he gave his life for his country. He was sent to the gallows by a cruel and conniving dictator who sentenced him for a crime he did not commit. Only for 50 years later, for the same Supreme Court that was stained with his blood to come out and say he was innocent. Only proving my grandfather's last words, which were, "Oh God, help me, for I am innocent." My mother, Shaheed Mohtharma Benazir Bhutto, was the first and youngest female Prime Minister of Pakistan and in the Muslim world. And it was her pursuit for justice for her father which propelled her into politics. And hers was a turbulent journey. She faced police brutality, incarceration, character assassinations, too often used on women, exile. She was basically a mother raising her children, as well as fighting for my father's release from jail, and all the while running and leading the largest political party in Pakistan. So as you can see, it's not an easy legacy to live up to, but it's one that I can't walk away from. For my family, sacrifice, service, fighting for the greater good is all we know. My grandfather used to say that the paradise of God lies under the feet of your mother, but the paradise of politics lies under the feet of the people. And for my family, these are not mere words. This is our ethos.
How do you view the situation for women in Pakistan today?
What I've seen with my mother, and something that I still see today, is that women have to work twice as hard to get half as much acknowledgement as a man. But we are a strong and resilient force. The founder of our nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, used to say that there are two great powers in this world. One is the sword, and the other is the pen. And there's a great deal of rivalry and competition between the two. But there's a third power, greater than both, and that is our women. So the more time I spend on the ground, I see what a strong force we are. And with regards to the issues that women might be facing, whether it's in Pakistan or globally, you name them, we're facing them. Be it inequality, be it security, be it access to healthcare, education. But we are a strong and resilient force, and the more time I spend on the ground, I see that with the power of the vote, we manage to make our voices heard. And for those who haven't voted or for some reason are outside the voting apparatus, they too, when they join forces and rallied together, their voice can make cities come to a standstill.
Yeah. You wear two hats. You're a member of parliament as well as being First Lady. How do you square the two? Because you need to be outspoken for your constituents, and at the same time, sometimes it's difficult to be political.
That's true. I've only recently become First Lady as my father became president, and as a widow, he decided to name his youngest daughter First Lady in order to fill that role and make sure that we have a strong representative for women and women's rights.
Do you feel like you have to hold back?
I have to hold back slightly when I'm in the arena of being the First Lady. But as a member of the National Assembly, when I'm on the National Assembly floor, I will be fighting for my people's rights, needs, and whatever they say to do. I'm their public servant.
Yeah. In discussing your family's legacy, it's impossible not to focus on the fact that politics, as you know, can be deadly. Right now, Imran Khan says he's under threat for his life. How credible, in your mind, are those threats?
I think that anyone who says that their life is in danger is a threat that we need to take seriously. But it is heartening to see. It is heartening to see that all the avenues are open to him. For example, all the courts are there for him to fight his cases. All his needs in jail, whether it be for his newspapers or gym equipment, are being met. And I would not wish anyone in Pakistan to face great difficulty, and I hope he will go through the avenues of the court, and the courts will have their verdict.
Are you confident he will have a fair treatment by the judicial system?
I think so. I do believe that he'll be able to put his case forward, and based on what the evidence says, they'll be able to make their decision.
Talk me through this. You have been a passionate proponent of the need for vaccines, particularly with regards to polio. When you see those in the United States, for example, President-elect Trump's pick, RFK Jr., who's a vaccine skeptic, does that worry you?
Right now, I'm more worried about the issues that Pakistan is facing. I'm sure that the United States has a rigorous campaign before you go to school, you have to get vaccinated. Before any large forums, there need to be vaccinations for your child to make sure that at every stage they get their vaccinations. But with regards to Pakistan, I'm an advocate for polio eradication in Pakistan. I've been their ambassador also for the United Nations and Rotary International. And the challenges we face are greatly different.
Yeah.
And some of in 1994, my mother actually gave me the first oral polio vaccine. And this was when she was Prime Minister at the time, and she often said that as a woman leader, she brought an additional role to her office. She brought that of a mother.
Yeah.
So she spearheaded this campaign across the country. Then I would have to say that the changes in government leads to an issue for us on the ground. We had a period of dictatorship under which the reality of the situation was simply not being reported. We went through another change in government under which all the stakeholders, be it the President, the Prime Minister, the Army Chief of Staff, all believed that this was an important issue and they were determined to eradicate this disease. Then we went through another change of government under which the government at the time did not take this seriously. And when the heads of government don't take this issue seriously of vaccination, there's a trickle-down effect. It trickles down to the bureaucrats, it trickles down to the health ministers, the health systems, all the way down to the health workers on the ground.
Yeah.
That this is not a serious issue. So I would have to say that that is one of the challenges that we're facing. A second challenge is that there was a misuse of our vaccination drive for security reasons, which brought about a lot of mistrust amongst our nation. We had clerics preaching that this vaccine would cause infertility and spreading misinformation. And this is an ongoing process. We have to take them on board as stakeholders and explain to them that this is the same vaccine that the United Arab Emirates uses, this is the same vaccine that Saudi Arabia uses, and they've managed to successfully eradicate this disease. So this is an ongoing process. But as a consequence of these two issues, we've had a lot of targeted attacks on our polio workers. There's been senseless killings of our polio workers on the ground, and our security forces also who are protecting them And their only crime was that they were trying to fight for our future generation. Their crime was that they wanted to ensure that every single child was vaccinated. So these are some of the issues. And lastly, I would have to say our geography. We're on the border with Afghanistan, and we see a great deal of migration that occurs. And in that process, some children miss our national immunization drives. We've made progresses in this. We've put vaccinators at the border. We've put vaccinators in between cities and in between provinces. So we're determined to try and reach every single child out there. I would have to say that these are some of the challenges we're facing. But if I talk to you about the progress that we're making, I would have to say that, and the successes, I would have to say that every single child vaccinated is a success. Every single child we managed to save from this crippling disease is a success.
Yeah.
And until we reach the ultimate goal of a polio-free Pakistan, these are the successes that I need to hold on to and build on.
You mentioned geography. Obviously, you're in a position at this point where geography has a great deal of impact on not just foreign policy, but obviously on the situation for women. How devastating, in your mind, was the withdrawal from Afghanistan, your neighbor? Because at this point, it seems as if the international community doesn't or isn't able to help those women. We gave them great promise, and then we abandoned them.
With regards of the way the exit from Afghanistan was conducted, I think that record speaks for itself. It's devastating to see, but we have to have faith in the Afghan government and their systems to try, and we have to ensure that as a country like Pakistan, who is our neighbor, we can try and encourage them to, take on board our women and perhaps not go with such stern language when it comes to them. But it's also that they are their own country, and we can't dictate them to tell them what they should do.
Yeah. Do you happen to think that there's something that the international community could do to help women there that they're not doing? Is there a pressure that we could exert?
I think that it's a very difficult situation because in the manner in which they stayed and they exited, it causes great difficulty for anyone in the world to dictate to them what they should or should not be doing.
Yeah.
So I think engagement with the Afghan government is the best option we have.
Yeah. Tell me this, when you think back to the legacy of your mother, not just as Prime Minister, but also as a parent, what are some of the lessons?
As I get older, even 16 years on from her assassination, I realize that there was a lesson in everything she said and did. Yeah. And despite the greatest odds, she managed to endure with incredible elegance, dignity, and grace. And if you've ever seen Sucker Jail and the condition she was in, you would see how difficult that was. So in the face of adversity, I can only hope and pray to have half as much elegance, dignity, and grace as she did.
For 16 years on, what is your advice to the women in this room as they look to take their place, not just as women, as mothers potentially, but also as those who are leading corporations, excited about being entrepreneurs and startups, and also going into politics?
My message to young women would be to believe in yourself, remain steadfast in your values, never underestimate the power of your voice. Leadership is not about privilege and position. It's shaped by purpose and persistence. And we must remember that the road ahead will be challenging, but we must embrace education, foster empathy, commit ourselves to uplifting all those around us. True leadership lies in service to others and the pursuit for justice, opportunity, and equality for all. My message to the younger generation would be that you are the architects of a brighter future.
Walk me through this one. As women, we often discuss how we are not just subject to the regular standards. We are also subject to even higher standards in what we wear and what we say and how we do our hair. Do you believe that that's evolving?
I would hope and pray that this evolves. However, I will give you an example. Well, it's heartening to see the number of women leaders across the world today.
Yeah.
I still think that we need to face issues that our male colleagues don't necessarily need to face. I can give you an example. I was in an interview with a prominent international news organization, and at the time we were talking about the crackdown on our party, the fear I had for my father's life in jail. This was his 2019 persecution against him, not to be confused with the 90s persecution against him. And at the end of the interview, I still get asked, "But do you like to cook?" So as women,
what do you like to cook?
But as women, we have to still prove today that yes, we can cook, we can clean, and we can lead. And we must simply have to endure and keep going.
Yeah, I mean, the unfair criticism I think that we've seen for women politicians across the board in the West as well. I mean, Hillary Clinton, not attacking her words per se, or challenging her words, but challenging her choice of outfit. Yeah.
I try to model my outfits on the basis of my mother, and it brings me a lot of comfort to have her white dupatta style around me. It makes me feel that I have her with me at all times.
And embrace. And just to close out our session, in your mind, where are we today in this region? Because the extraordinary strides made right here in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, for example, are inspiring, but the region still has more to do.
I think, number one, we must acknowledge the United Arab Emirates. Just look at this platform today. Many of our neighbors don't have this platform, and this is truly a global event. People from all across the world, all across nations, everyone has an inspiring story, a history. So I think that we need more platforms like this, and hopefully the region around us will also evolve into understanding the importance of women, giving them an opportunity, giving them a glimpse into public service and seeing how well they shine.
Yeah, and speaking of that glimpse into public service, what would be your suggestion to those in the audience today who are looking potentially to go into public service?
I believe that the world is your oyster and there is an opportunity everywhere.
Yeah.
And especially in the United Arab Emirates, just look at the number of cabinet members. Look at the people in His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid's office. The number of women has grown every single year. And I think that other countries around the world need to model this.
Yeah. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Hadley.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics, and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deep fake, and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too emotional.
Join me on the Riz Khan Show for empowering conversation.
Hello and welcome to Al Arabiya News. I'm your host, Michal Prendergast. I'm thrilled to say I'm joined by the star of Shark Tank USA and millionaire investor, Kevin O'Leary. So Kevin, the world has been shocked about the return of Donald Trump. Are you shocked?
No. The Democratic Party lost its way. They're no longer in touch with the electorate. There was a certain arrogance they had, and I think the problem started when Biden left the ticket, because in the democratic process, usually you have a convention, And so you start from scratch. And that process weeds out any weakness in candidates. If they have an inability to articulate their position, for example, or they're not able to debate their colleagues or whatever. But the other advantage of the convention, and there's been many very famous conventions back as far as the 40s, 50s, and 60s, is that the party realigns itself with a new message because it's trying to figure out what's the best candidate for the times. And they also get a tremendous amount of press, almost 5-6 weeks of press. That's not what happened here. What occurred was, I don't know if you want to call them the party elite, but the Pelosi's, the Schumers, the Obama,
the deep
even
state,
some movie stars, you know, they said, well, we're going to anoint Harris. And that was a mistake because Harris, well, a very fine person, I'm sure, has never won anything. And last time she tried this, she didn't get a single delegate. So in 2020, in 2019 she failed, 2020 she failed again in 2024. The analogy I think that is best serving this thing is the Super Bowl of all political contests on earth is the American presidential election. There's no greater political event on earth. And if your quarterback gets injured, which is what Biden was, you don't put in a new quarterback that's never played a game or ever won one, ever. They got shellacked, and they've learned an important lesson. I looked at that map, the electoral map, while covering the election. It was turning redder than a lobster being boiled. I mean, he just took the nation. And I think they're doing a little soul searching now. But they had it coming to them. And as I like to say, Trump did them a huge favor. He actually helped that party. They don't know it yet, but they're going to have to take a spatula to it and scrape all of those candidates away and start from scratch with new leadership. They'll be a very competitive party. There's a lot of talent in the Democratic Party that never got a chance to compete. Now they will.
Yeah, and speaking of Donald Trump, I've heard you say every Democrat has to thank him for saving American entrepreneurship and the American economy.
Yeah, the concept, some of the ideas being proposed, specifically taxing unrealized gains, that's un-American. The idea of price controls, Soviet-style price controls, that's un-American. The focus on gender identity was not the #1 concern of people that can't even afford chicken on their kitchen table. So when you get that lost, the system corrects itself, and that's exactly what happened. That's the amazing thing about democracy. When you try and stretch it too far in any direction, boom, it self-corrects. Now, you happen to be in the way of the self-correction, you get decimated, and that's what happened to that party.
Yes, and the effect of social media has been really interesting. Obviously, Elon Musk has played a huge part. Obviously, he paid it $44 billion. Do you see that as a good investment in the future of free speech?
Well, as an investment, it wasn't a good investment because it's valued now at 11 to 12 billion. But that doesn't matter. What he did do is keep alive the concept of free speech, because in a democracy, you're always dealing with 2.5% lunatic fringe. The cost of freedom of speech is the lunatic fringe. The minute you try and shut down the lunatic fringe, you're moving away from the concept freedom of speech. Everybody has a voice. You may not like what they say, but because they're part of the narrative, that is the core and the DNA of democracy. And so many ideas get tested, some get thrown out. And when you try and change that, again, the system self-corrects, and that's what happened here. So it's a very divided country now. We are going to have a new president with a full mandate. I mean, it looks like he's going to win the Senate and the House and the presidency. You can get a lot done for the first 2 years when you control everything. And so that's what's going to happen.
And obviously Trump in his first 4 years, it might have been called a little inexperienced. I think this time he won't mess around.
Well, he's actually signaled the market that he intends to hire seasoned veterans, AAA players, that don't have a mandate to go in the White House and write a book 6 weeks later after they're fired. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want a rotating door anymore. He wants A players, and he's grooming his He's got some very interesting people working on the inside to find the right people for every single position in cabinet. And I think it's going to be a fantastic government because it's going to focus on what the people want. They want security at the border. They've already said that. They want a reduction in inflation. The way you do that is you reduce energy costs. They want to strip away all the regulatory environment that the Biden administration put on. $1 trillion worth of burdensome regulation. He will tear that off like a Band-Aid, rip it right off, and the economy, as you can see, indexed by the market, the buoyancy that happened as soon as they figured out that he was going to be president, was pretty happy with that outcome. This is good for business. And when the economy is buoyant and people are getting employed, it's good for everybody. So, you know, the Democrats are licking their wounds, but in 6 weeks, everybody forget about it, and we'll move on. It'll be a great thing for everybody. I think the U.S. is in a renaissance period. And I'm not really shilling for politicians. I never do that. I shill for policy. I care about policy. I care about entrepreneurship. I care about investing. I care about the American dream. I'm an ambassador for it. I want that to work because my family, you know, is American and they're working in the U.S. I want the best we can get for that country every day. And this is how you do it.
And speaking in terms of efficiency, Elon Musk has famously, he sacked or he got rid of 85% of Twitter, and it's still running pretty flawlessly. There's been a lot of speculation that he might get the Secretary of State for Government Efficiency. Would you like to see that? What could someone like Elon Musk do in terms of saving tax dollars?
I don't think he'll take an actual specific role in cabinet. I think what he will do is be a consultant for the American people, identify inefficiencies, and get the whacking stick out. I love that idea. I love the idea that we've never really scraped the fat out of the federal government, and it's big, porky, fat, dripping with opportunity to cut. But the only way you can do that is you need a mandate from the top dog, the president, because no agency wants to be downsized. You walk in saying, I want to fire a third of you. They're not going to help you. But he'll identify opportunity. I call it release the hounds. Because what taxpayer, regardless of what your politics are, red or blue or independent, who wouldn't want to save money by just chopping out all the waste in the federal government? And I think if there's one man that has the ability to do that, proven executional skills, it's Elon Musk. So I really endorse this idea.
Well, I think it could be a great team, obviously, with Donald Trump and the art of the deal. To speak on the international scale, with tariffs, obviously it's a word that Trump has bandied around a lot. What does that mean for, I suppose, the average Joe in America and for the future of international trade? We're looking at China, we're looking at EV production. What do Trump's tariffs mean?
So tariffs were used as a form of rhetoric, weaponry during the election cycle. Harris called them sales tax, like a VAT tax that we have in Europe. That's not what they are. In fact, there's a bill cruising around the Hill right now in the U.S. It's a tariff reciprocal act. And what it says is any of our trading partners that impose tariffs will put a reciprocal, identical tariff. So if Germany puts 10% on cars, we'll put 10% on their cars coming to the U.S., that kind of thing. And of course, you know, there's a new act, the new NAFTA 2.0, if you want to call it that governs Canada, the United States, and Mexico, big trading partners. The one entity that I think you're going to see a lot more pressure on is China. China doesn't abide by the rules of the WTO. They joined in 1999 with all kinds of promises to play by the rules, and they never did. So I'm an advocate for using tariffs to squeeze their heads like teenage pimples. And the way I make that is, point that out, is to say, look, the only way a supreme leader stays in power perpetually is everybody has bread and butter. You have to have a job, otherwise you ride against the supreme leader. And that's just the way it is in a communist dictatorship. So the way you squeeze the supreme leader's head is you say, look, let's pick a sector. I'm just going to use an example. Yoga mats. Let's say the U.S. orders 1 million yoga mats a week from China. You put a 400% tariff on it. And all the people making yoga mats in China lose their jobs. And they don't have any bread and butter anymore. And the supreme leader goes, oh my goodness, I don't have any jobs for these yoga mat makers. And then you say, well, where else can we inflict some damage? Let's do it in this sector. put on 400% tariff there, squeezing that teenage pimple till it pops. Then he gets on an airplane and flies to Washington saying, just kidding, I want to work out and be part of the Reciprocal Tariff Act, because China only understands the stick. They don't understand anything else.
It's a game of chicken.
Well, Trump scares his adversaries because he's unpredictable. He's just very unpredictable. When you know what your adversary is going to do all the time and they signal it to you beforehand, you're not scared of him anymore. They're scared shitless of Trump. And that's, excuse my French, but that's basically how it works. That's why you're seeing all these guys saying, oh, we want to have peace now. No, we want to stop. I mean, because he's very unpredictable. So in the case of China, squeezing the supreme leader to the table is a good thing. So I would like to go to 400% tariffs, because I do business in China. They don't play by the rules.
And how about on EVs? Because obviously, even a 20% or even a 30% tariff on EVs, I believe in the EU, they're trying to flood the market. Obviously, Germany's not happened. We've seen Volkswagen cut 1,000 jobs in 2 months ago.
The point is, tariffs are temporary. They're a negotiating tactic. But if you're going to put them on, don't screw around. Go to 400%. Make it impossible for them to sell any widgets anywhere. So if you put 400% on an EV, no one's going to buy it. Only the Chinese can buy it. So all the people making the EVs, no bread, no butter. That's how you do it. Now, if I was the minister of Chinese head squeezing, that's how I would do it. And believe me, they will be at the table so fast because they cannot afford to have unemployment in that economy. And it's showing some cracks there. So you want to hit them while they're down and bring them to the table. They cheat on IP, they steal, you can't use their courts. A good example that people should focus on is Twitter, or not Twitter, but TikTok. TikTok has been deemed Chinese spyware by the American Congress. That's a bipartisan bill. By midnight on Jan 19th in the US, the servers are going to get turned off.
I've heard you say as well that you would like to buy it via a consortium. Do you want to buy Twitter?
Yeah,
TikTok?
I would definitely buy TikTok. I would buy it because it's a great, it depends what I get with it. If I don't get the algorithm, all I'm getting is a mailing list, so I pay a lot less for that. But we'll see how this goes, because remember, they did this in India. After 4 years, they had 200 million users on it, and the supreme leader would not, play by the rules with the Indian government, and they said, we'll just turn it off. And everybody was squeamish for a week, and then they forgot about it. They just drifted onto other social media platforms. So again, squeezing the supreme leader's head there is good. And it is spyware. I would never put that on a phone that I have sensitive data on. It's Chinese spyware. Everybody knows that. That's why it's shut down. They just shut it down in Canada. I mean, they're going to shut it down everywhere. But this is the arrogance of the supreme leader. He doesn't care. So you've got to squeeze his head. He will appreciate the head squeezing. He will thank you for it.
And is it the same, obviously, with the likes of Vladimir Putin and the war between Israel and Hamas? War is not good for business. Do you think Trump is going to have a large enough impact? He said famously, I will stop the wars within the first day of office. Do you think that's true?
Putin understands force. Not a very nice guy. He's killed a lot of people. But 25,000 young Russians a month lose their lives. He's buying their services now. There's no more patriots left. You get coffin money, your family gets a house, but you go die or get blown up. That's pretty brutal. So I would think giving him a call and saying, look, I've been thinking about this war. I don't like it. I don't want to pay for the Ukrainian costs, and I want it to stop. Come to the table, or I'll do something that will really surprise you, which is probably what people worry about with Trump, because we saw how he ended the Syrian conflict by just saying, I'm going to kill this guy. And he did. And I think that kind of erratic nature is what these adversaries worry about. Now, a lot of NATO players don't like to hear this, but I think war's horrible. I think all these people and children losing their lives is horrible. It's just, somebody has to stop this.
Exactly, and on a human level, but as well as markets.
But
so
the world
affects
is
the bread and
uncomfortable.
butter as well. So you're taking food off of people's tables, affecting jobs as well as the human suffering. It's bad all around.
It is. So I think people are willing to try a different way. Now, whether it's Trump successful or not, we'll see. But this carnage of death of young children, I can't watch it anymore. No one can.
Of course.
It's got to stop.
Then, moving on to cryptocurrency, we've seen markets as well as the price of Bitcoin increase. It broke $72,000, I believe, in the past few days. Do you believe under Trump, what is the height that you think it can get to under a Trump presidency?
So Trump has signaled, and the market knows this, that he is in favor of digital payment system, which includes Bitcoin, which is an asset class. I'm not saying that's a digital payment system, but it's no different than gold. I mean, you can own some gold, you can own some Bitcoin. I own both. What the problem is, we don't have institutional support for it yet because it's not regulated in the U.S. The way other commodities are. So the rumor on the street is that the CFTC, which regulates commodities, is going to get the mandate for crypto, and they're looking for someone to run it. And they'll probably take a lot of that away from Gensler at the SEC, who's been litigating this sector, and successfully, I might add. He's, all the crypto cowboys, like Binance, CZ, he's a felon now. You know what happened to Sam Bankman-Fried. So people that took on Gensler all lost, and this is probably a good thing. So we move into a phase now where it's going to be regulated. There's a lot of optimism about it. Here in Abu Dhabi, we have the M2 exchange, which is a very interesting idea because it's completely compliant with its regulator. I see a lot of upside coming in crypto.
And a figure, just briefly, do you think, what's the limit? Do you think it can reach 200K under a Trump presidency?
I think we'll all see 100,000 shortly. I feel everybody should have 5% weighting in gold in their portfolio. Nothing wrong with 5% weighting in Bitcoin. I mean, why not? I mean, unless you really think, and you don't have to do this, I'm just saying alternative asset classes in times of uncertainty and inflation are good. I mean, I own gold and I've had it my whole life. I was given a locket from my Irish father when I was 11 years old that had a gold coin in it. That's when I fell in love with it. I've had that ever since. And I own bullion, I own ETFs. I mean, gold is gold. The Romans loved it, I love it. Bitcoin is the new, it's not as old as gold, but it's performed very well for me.
Yeah, and just lastly, speaking on gold, obviously to have Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful in the studio, it would be a shame if I didn't ask about watches. You are, I would say, the most famous watch collector in the world now, doing millions of views on YouTube every month with the likes of Teddy Baldassar. He has just opened his new watch shop. I want to ask you, would you ever think of entering the watch strap business? The red bands are... They're synonymous with you.
It's a great question, but what I've learned about watch collecting and getting access, I mean, the thing that in my journey into horology is, in order to get watchmakers that are really unique, who make only a few pieces a year, you need to be known as a collector. And what does that mean? It means that you support the art, it's no different than contemporary art, and you don't flip them. So flipping a watch, when you get a reputation for buying it at the entry price from the watchmaker and then turning around and selling it for 4 times that the next week, you're not a collector, you're just a flipper. And the watch community is very small. It's in terms of the makers, there's probably 25 makers of consequence worldwide. The word gets out overnight that you're not a real collector. And so it takes a long time to earn the trust of an F.P. Journe or a Simon Britt or any of these makers. And I'm known I've never sold a watch. And so I have a very vast collection, and I'm a dial guy, as you know. So
of
I'm
course.
always looking for the new dial. I'm wearing a
Yes,
Moser,
let's see.
a unique dial here. And of course, this is a classic Daytona. I thought, this is New York time, this is Abu Dhabi time. And so I support. The thing about getting into the business of retailing watches or retailing bands is all of a sudden...
I'd buy it, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I'm
100%.
You're no
I'll pay a
longer
pretty penny
collector.
for an O'Leary
I know.
band.
But I'm very fortunate. Every watch company knows I won't wear it unless it has a red band. So they don't even offer me watches if they can't put a red band on. I would never buy them. So my whole thing's red band because it looks fantastic. Great with gold, great with platinum. I mean, this looks gorgeous. works with my red.
Of course.
I just wonder if
like on Shark Tank.
Yeah, the whole thing is, you know, it's just over the years it's become one of my things. But each maker, watches are really a beautiful thing because they mark a period in your life. Every time I do a big deal, I buy a new watch, and I associate that deal with that watch. And you know, my daughters try and steal them, my wife, my son. Nobody gets to touch my watches. Like, that's it. That's the one thing that I've got. They're in vaults all around the world, you know, and I just love it. I just have so much fun. And the reason I like it is the community of watch collectors that I know all around the world are very eclectic. Surgeons, artists, financiers, royalty, you name it. And
journalists?
Yes, journalists. We share the passion of watches, and I think it enriches my life.
Great. Kevin O'Leary, a millionaire investor, host of the Smash Hit Show at Shark Tank. Thank you so much for your time.
You got it. Thank you.
At Arabiya News, we go beyond the headlines.
From the latest breaking news to in-depth coverage of global events.
We're not bought or sold. Nobody owns us.
The loss of life, the destruction of property. The conflicts are such a terrible thing.
Context and analysis to help you see the full picture.
The world is in a very dangerous place.
Join us on Arabiya News,
It's very impressive.
where knowledge meets perspective.
From the White House to Gaza, Kiev to Beijing, elections, economics and the environment compete with conflicts and other complex issues for our attention. In an age of fake news, deepfake and artificial intelligence,
They've got to have a vote and a say.
it's important to look beyond the loudest voice to understand the truth. From newsmakers to groundbreakers,
My campaign is going very well.
presidents, prime ministers, princes and peacemakers, and cultural tastemakers.
As Arabs, as Middle Eastern, we're too